Are you ready?
5, 4, 3, 2, 1.
Broadcasting live from the Newsmax studios, this is the Steve Malzberg Show. Be a part of the action by calling 855-777-9660. That's 855-777-9660. Or email Steve at malzbergshow@newsmax.com. Here is Steve Malzberg.
Hey, good afternoon, everyone. My name is Giordano, pinch hitting for Steve today on a busy news day with a lot of great guests joining us on the Steve Malzberg program. Hope you were with me yesterday. We talked with people like Mike Lee. Today we get to talk to Senator Ted Cruz. That'll be later in the show, and we'll talk with him about this fight that's developing between various elements of the Republican Party. Some of it's healthy. I'm fine with it. Rand Paul yesterday on Steve's show told me that, look, he made his point about Governor Christie. Christie made his point. It's time now to move on. And he suggested a beer summit with him. Governor Christie has rejected that. He's too busy. He says he has no time. He has to do his job, and he has to run for office. So that was a missed opportunity by the governor, because these are two of the big-time players so far, and they have different strands of the Republican Party, one libertarian, one more establishment going. So hopefully Governor Christie will reconsider. In my neck of the woods, Philadelphia, where I do talk radio, the big story out there is a story that brings together so many elements, and we'll talk about it today with a special guest on Steve's show. There's this backup. If you're a Giants fan, if you're in Florida, wherever you're watching, you've seen the Eagles. You see a big guy come in, a wide receiver. Not that great, kind of their fourth receiver, red zone guy. His name is Riley Cooper. About a month or so ago at a Kenny Chesney concert in which Cooper was called up on stage to perform along with Chip Kelly and another Eagle, he got into a fight or a confrontation with a black security guard. And I'm going to play you what Riley Cooper said during that confrontation with the black security guard that is now making national news. I'll tell you the latest developments, and you would think, despite what this guy said that was wrong, that this was the only problem the NFL or sports or maybe America had. Here's Riley Cooper at the Kenny Chesney concert.
I will jump that fence and fight every here, bro. Hold on. I will jump that fence and fight every here, bro.
All right, and there's another Eagles player, a guy, one of their linemen, Kelsey, I believe, they're trying to calm him down after he said that. So he apologized, which actually is the right thing to do. It was a heartfelt apology. The Eagles fined them. We're working on figuring out how much. I hear it was extensive. And the NFL has now fined him. But you talk about the double standards, the hypocrisy, the type of nonsense, this PC world that we live in, even in sports. What's happened now is that right before the Steve Malzberg show, the Eagles have talked to the DA of the city of Philadelphia, Seth Williams, and asked him to come up with charities and communities and to take Riley Cooper on a tour of the city talking about his usage of the N-word. Well, this is the very city, Philadelphia, where routinely we've had big public events with rappers who at least have used the N-word, and now we're going to have a public dialogue on insensitivity, the N-word, and all that. And I asked a Philadelphia sports writer today about this, and he said, well, black people can say the N-word. That's fine. White people can't. It's a pretty simple rule, and if you do this, you are going to be punished big time. There's a Philadelphia sports writer for the Inquirer we'll have on later in the show who believes it would be fine. He thinks that Riley Cooper, for this infraction, should be suspended or even released by the Eagles. Now, who do the sports writers go to get the moral compass on this? How big of a gaffe is this on the muzzle meter? They go to Michael Vick. You all know Michael Vick. Michael Vick is the guy convicted of some of the most horrific crimes done over a period of years, the torture of dogs. Michael Vick, I have to say, since he's come to the Eagles, has done a nice job at fitting in, trying to get his life going, but I don't think he gets to be the moral arbiter of the use of the N-word by this guy. My take is the Eagles, as an employer, had the right to fine him. He tarnished their brand. The NFL can fine him. That's about it. There's no racial history with this guy. We have Michael Vick's brother, Marcus Vick, now out there saying we ought to put a bounty. He wants a bounty on his head. He's willing to pay a guy who's had his own troubles with the law, Marcus Vick, any defensive back, any linebacker who puts this guy out. So is the NFL going to be sensitive to all this bounty talk with Riley Cooper, or does Riley Cooper, by his words, in a league made up predominantly of African Americans, deserve to have a bounty placed on his head? Isn't it remarkable, too, that the mayor of the city, the DA, and these others in Philadelphia, these are people that said outrageous things when Mitt Romney came to town during the presidential debate about Romney only wanting to be seen with black children, black faces. It's amazing that in America today, this guy saying this is making this much news. And I'm telling you, there's going to be a lot of crossfire over the next 24 hours back and forth over this. You heard where I stand. I'd love to hear where you stand. And we'll play you a little bit more of what's happening around this in the world of sports. The bottom line is the world of sports, at least sports media, has become as politically correct as anything. I wonder if the sports media world is going to report that just this year, in the NFL, 40 current NFL players, 40, have been arrested. And I have a story here, a study here of the violence level. Look at Aaron Hernandez, arrested for murder, a particularly amazing murder, not in a fit of rage, but allegedly luring a guy and shooting him to death. So what's the real story here? Is it Riley Cooper? He should apologize. He should be fined. I agree with all that. But is this public enemy number one? What about the 40 NFL players who have been arrested just this year? Just since the Super Bowl, in fact, for most of them. It's a pretty incredible statistic, just out of what? We have about 1,200 players, roughly 1,500 players. That's a pretty sizable statistic of the number of arrests. I don't know that number of lawyers or other professionals or talk show hosts have been arrested just this year. There have been a few talk show hosts, maybe. But watch for this to play out in Philadelphia. Watch for national coverage of this. ESPN and the others are starting to pick up. And many of them are making this the worst crime that a person could commit. Now, isn't there a double standard here? This guy should not have said that. He should have been fined. He apologized. He should have been made to apologize, and it seemed to be heartfelt. Isn't it time to move on? By the way, while all this was going on, do you remember the case of Ariel Castro, the guy who has now been convicted of holding women in captivity for, what, a dozen years in some cases? He today talked in his defense before sentencing, and he said, "I'm not a monster, I'm sick." Hasn't this guy learned well the therapeutic culture that we're in, that nobody's ever evil as this guy is, a criminal as this guy is, somebody who could have gotten the death penalty even for this? He's sick. That's what he told the judge today. That's what he told the jury. This guy's just following what he's been taught and what he's seen out there in the media. This guy was once a bus driver, too, ferrying kids around, as I understand it. That's pretty amazing, isn't it, that no background check would turn up anything along those lines. All right, we've got a lot more on the Steve Malzberg Show. As I said, later on in the show, we have the Philadelphia sports writer. We have Ted Cruz coming by today, and a number of other people. Edward Snowden, too, has gotten asylum in Russia. Good. I hope he likes it there. It's going to be interesting to see how he likes Moscow winters. But we'll talk with various people who think that Snowden maybe did us a solid. I don't see it that way. More coming up with Dom Giordano sitting in for Steve Malzberg.
The Steve Malzberg Show.
In 2013, half of your friends, family, and neighbors may lose their jobs, all while you are robbed of 90% of your life savings, investments, and home's value. Controversial economist Robert Wiedemer, who was the only expert to predict the recession, has released a startling video with shocking evidence that the powers that be have tried to ban. But that hasn't stopped 50 million people from getting the truth. Watch it at AftershockVideo.com. AftershockVideo.com. In 2013, half of your friends, family, and neighbors may lose their jobs, all while you are robbed of 90% of your life savings, investments, and home's value. Controversial economist Robert Wiedemer, who was the only expert to predict the recession, has released a startling video with shocking evidence that the powers that be have tried to ban. But that hasn't stopped 50 million people from getting the truth. Watch it at Aftershock911.com. Aftershock911.com.
Guys, you've heard about Ageless Male, the natural supplement that helps boost testosterone levels within normal, healthy ranges. But now, the best testosterone product is even better. New and improved Ageless Male can help you feel more like you used to in your active life and in your romantic life. Because our upgraded formula has been clinically shown to increase your drive, desire, and performance. That's right, guys. Ageless Male has been clinically shown to boost performance. Cancel your plans this weekend. You're staying in. If you're ready to recapture the drive from your youth, now is the time to try Ageless Male because it's available risk-free. But you must call now. Just call 1-800-460-9790. Be the guy you used to be. Just call 1-800-460-9790. 1-800-460-9790. 1-800-460-9790.
Judging from everything you hear, you think all cholesterol is bad, but that's not really true. You need a certain amount of cholesterol to maintain good health. The problem is that too much cholesterol in your blood contributes to a plaque, a fatty substance that narrows the coronary arteries that feed blood flow to your heart. Picture your coronary arteries as a 4-lane highway. If one lane becomes blocked, traffic still flows well. 2 lanes, no major problem. But if a 3rd lane becomes blocked, that spells trouble. It's the same way with your coronary arteries. And when plaque slows their blood flow to your heart, this can even cause a heart attack. The good news is that when it comes to cholesterol, lifestyle changes can pay off big time. Even a small reduction in plaque can be like opening up another highway lane. Suddenly, blood flow that was stalled can go forward again. Changing your lifestyle does not have to be hard. And in fact, here are 3 ways to help you start lowering your cholesterol. Snack on nuts. Nuts are probably one of the easiest and tastiest ways to lower cholesterol. Walnuts and almonds are among the best. Bulk up your diet with fiber. Choose whole fruits instead of a fruit juice, brown rice instead of white, and if you're eating a baked potato, be sure to leave the skin on. Choose fish. Fish contains cholesterol-fighting omega-3 fatty acids. I'm Dr. Chauncey Crandall, and thanks for watching this Heart Health Minute. Remember, it's never too late to prevent or reverse heart disease. Right now, I invite you to discover your own risk for heart disease or even a heart attack by taking my quick, free online quiz at www.simplehearttest.com.
Where can you find the Steve Malzberg Show? Everywhere. From your smartphone to satellite radio to Newsmax Live TV to Roku, we have you covered. Here is Steve Malzberg.
Hey, welcome in, everyone, to the Steve Malzberg program with Dom Giordano pinch hitting today. Really enjoyed it yesterday and have some great guests, some great things coming our way today, and a lot of breaking news. Just during that break, reading Shannon Sharpe, who's an NFL Hall of Famer. He was on a Baltimore radio station talking about Riley Cooper, the guy in Philadelphia who dropped the N-bomb and got caught with this. And here's what he had to say. And here's the problem the NFL has. He says, normally when people are drinking, they say truthful things. He opened up a can of worms for everybody else that plays on the opposite side of the football that's going to be teeing off on him. Because most of the safeties in the National Football League are African-American. Most of the corners African-American. A lot of the linebackers African-American. Those are the guys that he's going to have to face. Those are the guys he's going to have to make amends to. And then he says, will the Eagles have the back of Riley Cooper, teammate, if he's attacked by somebody because of what he did with the N-word? And what will the referees do? Now, this guy is only a backup player, but the injuries to an Eagles frontline player, Jeremy Maclin, now had people in Philadelphia thinking he might start or play extensively. It's going to be fascinating to see how the NFL plays with this. And as I said, I have a copy in front of me of the arrest of NFL players since the beginning of this year, and I have a long-term study that indicated that they took a look at over 500 NFL players a year ago. Over 25% had arrest record or multiple arrest records. So isn't a real story here? We know that any number of pro athletes are doing all kinds of things that we as fans don't like, but if they can play and play well, we put up with it. I mean, tomorrow there's going to be a huge bomb dropped, I think. Every reporter out there today that's covering this says that the Major League Baseball is going to suspend Alex Rodriguez, and probably, it looks like, extensively for years, if not for life. And this plays into the fact the Yankees then will stand to gain close to $100 million in salary cap space. Well, they have a soft cap. And the world of sports has become politically correct tours on the N-word, discussions of caps and luxury taxes rather than you ought to be able to spend whatever you want to field a team. One of the things I've said in talk radio over the years, I don't like the NFL draft. I don't like any of these drafts. I think you ought to be able to go. If I want to work in Philadelphia, I can work in Philadelphia. I want to work in New York, I can work in New York. I think you ought to be able to go to whatever team you want. Oh, my God. Isn't it socialism to have these sorts of things? But I'm convinced Alex Rodriguez probably gets banned for life tomorrow, and 10 or 12 other players get extensive bans. Could it be that Major League Baseball is finally cracking down on the cheaters, and rightfully so? It will be a fascinating tomorrow, and I know here on the Malzberg show there'll be a lot of coverage of it as we see what happens to these guys, because it's not just about sports and baseball. It's about our society and where we're going with this. And the Riley Cooper story is such a big story today because of all these conflicting messages we get. I have one of my researchers right now, my son, in fact, looking up all these rappers that are entertained at official concerts in Philadelphia. We have this big Labor Day concert with Jay-Z, et cetera. And I'm predicting any number of them have either used the N-word in their performances or even used it in Philadelphia. So what's the story here? Now, we know that Riley Cooper using it was malicious. He was going back against an African-American security guy. That's wrong. But how about when any number of people profit off this and use it in their raps or use it in some way, shape, or form to say they have license, they can do it? Is that right? Is somebody going to be consistent on this whole thing? All right. As I mentioned earlier on, too, Edward Snowden is out there. Edward Snowden has now been given asylum for 1 year in Russia. And it's going to be very interesting to see if he lasts that year with all the revelations that we've seen. Somebody sent me something today where Homeland Security on their own website has all these, you ready for this, Christmas gifts that you can buy, from Homeland Security, that involve surveillance, black boxes, things to track a loved one, give it to a person who wants to track their wife or something. Boy, we have really lost our way, have we not, here with Homeland Security and the NSA and some of these others? The level of spying, the level of intrusion into our lives, day after day, story after story, is extreme. I'll talk to Peter King about that a little bit later on in the show, the congressman from Long Island, who I respect and has been a champion of national security. And I'm sitting in New York, not too far from Ground Zero, so I'm certainly sensitive to it. But does that mean we should allow the government to come into our mail, our cell phones, and be giving tracking devices out? In Philadelphia, where I am, there's a dry cleaner today in Manayunk that has a drone, offering drone service to get your dry cleaning back. Even dry cleaners are getting into the act and talking about the whole notion of having fun with this because it's become such an epidemic. So watch for that story too, and watch to see what happens with Snowden, who's no hero, who did the wrong thing. He could have gone to any number of sources to reveal the information about the NSA and the metadata. What bothers me the most about this is Obamacare. Because remember, come October 1st, when we all start to register one way or another, are you in or are you out? With Obamacare, there will be an extensive look at your personal records by these navigators, these people that go into the data hub. They can look at this for any number of reasons. We don't know who these people are. A lot of them are community groups. They may be up to no good. They may be trying to turn a profit. They'll have your medical information. They'll have your financial information with the IRS. And to me, that is tremendously frightening. So we'll continue here on the Malzberg Show talking about the idea of stopping this in its tracks. So it's a big, big news day here with a lot of big guests coming up. And as I said, we will continue to monitor what's happening with Obamacare. But along the way, we'll have somebody on to talk about this Riley Cooper scandal, if you will, that's happening. And coming up, we'll have Seton Motley. He's president of Less Government. He'll be here to discuss the Obama's phony scandals charge. We have Jay Carney. I think we have a cut of Jay Carney still out there trying to position this. Is Benghazi a phony scandal? We see that CNN has been able to easily locate one of the people that may have been implicated in this. Here's a little bit of Jay Carney, the president's spokesperson, on the phony scandals argument that the president is going around making.
President Obama mentioned the phony scandals that are part of an endless parade of distractions. Mm-hmm. Can you tell us what phony scandals he's talking about?
What we've seen as time has passed and more facts have become known, whether it's about the attacks in Benghazi and the talking points, or revelations about conduct at the IRS, that attempts to turn this into a scandal have failed.
Well,
I'm not going to catalog.
IRS and Benghazi.
Again, I think there was a period where there was a lot more energy and focus was paid by some in Congress as well as in the media on issues that, while important, are not of the highest priority to the American people, and they were not scandals.
So they're not scandals. I don't want to talk about it anymore. Not in the interest of the American people. Well, guess what, Mr. Carney? We do care about Benghazi still, and we're going to talk with someone else coming up that does, and we're going to talk about Benghazi and the CNN interview. My name is Dom Giordano, sitting in for Steve Malzberg here on the Steve Malzberg program.
The Steve Malzberg Show. Attention, if you've been classified as a high-risk driver due to DUI, DWI, or tickets for aggressive driving and are required to get expensive and hard-to-find SR22 auto insurance, then you must listen to this message because we can help. We're the largest insurance company in the U.S. specializing in SR22 auto insurance and focused on serving the needs of customers classified by the state as high-risk drivers. We help people get back on their feet by providing easy-to-get, low-cost SR22 insurance that anyone can afford. If you need SR22 auto insurance, or if you have it now and are paying too much, you need to call us today for your free quote at 800-836-4606. Our specialists are standing by waiting for your call. We understand people make mistakes, and we're here to help by making SR22 insurance easy to get and affordable for everyone. The call and quote are free. Call us now at 800-836-4606. That's 800-836-4606. Again, 800-836-4606.
In 2013, half of your friends, family, and neighbors may lose their jobs, and you may be forced to watch helplessly as you are robbed of 90% of your life savings, all while your home's value is eradicated. Controversial economist Robert Wiedemer believes we will soon stare down a secret crisis that will rival the Great Depression. It was Wiedemer's 2005 book, America's Bubble Economy, that warned of coming meltdowns in our housing and stock markets. Washington did not heed his call, and folks on Main Street lost $50 trillion from the recession. His New York Times best-selling book, Aftershock, predicted our federal debt and dollar would be the next bubbles to burst. And now Robert Wiedemer has released a startling video with shocking evidence the powers that be have tried to ban. But that hasn't stopped 50 million people from getting the truth. Join us at Aftershock2013.com, Aftershock2013.com.
Here's today's silver shortage update from Lear Capital.
Reports keep coming, the shortage is growing. Twice already this year, the U.S. Mint has run out. Last time this happened, the silver price jumped 40%. It's time to take advantage with this special offer from Lear Capital.
For a limited time, buy 20 new silver polar bear coins and get one free. The only 1.5 ounce coin on the market. It's minted with the finest silver, carries a government guarantee, and is eligible for IRAs. The silver polar bear is available exclusively from Lear Capital. But don't wait. Silver supplies are shrinking and availability is not guaranteed. This offer is limited to a minimum purchase of $5,000. Call right now. 800-634-0482. 800-634-0482. Call Lear Capital now. 800-634-0482.
Do you have a motorized wheelchair or scooter that needs repairs and you don't know where to turn? Then call the experts at Precision Repair Network. They are the specialists in repairing all makes and models of motorized wheelchairs and scooters. You can call 24/7 and they will come to you anywhere in the United States. They'll give you a loaner to use until they return yours in perfect condition. And your repairs may be covered by your Medicare or your private insurance, so there is little or no out-of-pocket cost to you. If your wheelchair or scooter needs repairs, call this special hotline now and learn how you can get door-to-door service on your repairs at little or no cost to you. Precision Repair Network. They'll get you moving again. Operators are ready to take your call right now. 800-978-4813. 800-978-4813. 800-978-4813. That's 800-978-4813.
This is not your typical Screamfest talk show.
No.
This is the next generation of talk radio. Here is Steve Malzberg.
Hey, welcome in, everyone. It's Tom Giordano, pinch hitting for Steve today, and a lot of stuff swirling around Edward Snowden again today, and a lot of stuff swirling around the so-called phony scandals. Here to break it down with us is Seton Motley, president of Less Government. Seton, welcome to the Steve Malzberg program.
It's a pleasure. Thank you very much for having me.
Well, we just played a clip of Jay Carney engaging, then disengaging on Benghazi. And, we're trying to lock these guys down, Seton. Maybe you have a strategy to tell us which one of these so-called scandals that are out there are phony and which ones are real.
Well, of course, this is we're hearing it more and more. This is right out of Alinsky's Rules for Radicals playbook. Is you just dismiss everything out of hand as ridiculous, and that's being thrown at you. And meanwhile, there's all kinds of actual phony scandals that are being leveled against us. Mm-hmm. So that's part of the deal. Look, all of these things are to varying degrees unphony. I mean, there are 4 dead guys in Benghazi. How is that phony?
And I might add, we just played, too, CNN getting the interview of one of the principals that may or may not be part of the gang that did it. They sat at a coffee shop having lattes with him.
Hasn't talked to him. And the FBI still hasn't talked to him. First of all, it's international. Why is the FBI handling this?
Right.
That's a question. So remember, the director of the FBI, Robert Mueller, was asked by Jim Jordan from Ohio, congressman in Congress, in a hearing, who's leading the investigation into the IRS scandal. He couldn't name who was leading the investigation.
Exactly, and he's the head of the FBI. Yes,
he's head of the FBI, and this is supposed to be. And Jordan rightly pointed out, this has been the number 1 story in the news for a month, and you can't tell me who's leading the investigation, which means there is no investigation.
Let me parse this out with the IRS scandal. I don't think that'll go away. My fear is, despite dead Americans here, they're thinking it's too exotic, it'll be too long, that they'll play it out long enough, and Benghazi will go away.
Well, I think you're right for Obama. I think
Hillary,
the fear for Democrats is if Hillary's going to be the nominee in 2016, that was her bailiwick. That was her responsibility as Secretary of State. So I'm thinking the Republicans rightly should keep pressing forward on this, not just because families are owed an explanation of what happened to their lost loved ones and their hurt loved ones. But also, from a crass political perspective, if she runs, she's polling way ahead of every other friggin' Democrat, and she'll be the nominee, and we have to hang this around her neck like an albatross.
Well, particularly, you're right. You're right. Coupling that with the remark, and she got away with it then, it helped to get her out when she stood up on her hind legs and said, after all this time, what difference does it make? That'll be replayed again and again and again. And in its context, it's correct. She doesn't want to get to the bottom of this with people that are dead.
Right. And the only person in jail for this is that poor Nicola,
yes.
the movie maker. Chris Stevens' mother is on TV a lot now saying, I was told when my son's body landed in America that they were going to get this filmmaker, and that was the reason responsible for this. And as has been since borne out without any question, there was never any evidence that a film had. It wasn't like they had it.
Here's the outstanding question.
They never had any evidence that was the case.
Here's the outstanding question I wanted to ask you, and I think we have some closed-door testimony of one of the generals today. The shocking thing about this is the military either incapability or somebody told them not to go. We never leave people. We always make the effort to go and bring them home.
Well, there is one of the key components to people putting their lives on the line in a military setting, in a diplomatic setting, by going out to dangerous posts, even as diplomats, is the confidence you have that your brothers and sisters in arms will come and rescue you in the event of a problem. Otherwise, you cannot get anybody to put their lives on the line.
And particularly this country. That's our record. That's what it is. We pride ourselves. It's in our DNA as Americans. We don't leave anybody behind.
And unfortunately, starting with Vietnam, we did start leaving people behind. The POW MIA program and that sort of thing. Vietnam was a terrible turn on a lot of different fronts, and that is one of them where we did start leaving people behind. But yes, you cannot get people from a crass execution standpoint. You can't get people to put their lives on the line if they can't be confident that they'll go and get them. And if you recall the congressional testimony of one of the guys from the State Department said that the military, when they were told to stand down, said to him on the phone, a military guy who I can't remember, said on the phone, this is the first time in my life I've seen the State Department have more balls than the military.
Absolutely. Now, Seton, let me turn to another area. You are the president of Less Government. We have Ted Cruz coming on a little bit later. We talk with Rand.
Awesome.
Yep.
He's my favorite Cuban senator.
We talk with Rand Paul yesterday, and the issue is this. You got Karl Rove in one corner saying if you dare defund Obamacare, the president's going to throw the government into question, and we lose out. We'll get killed with this. That's where we are right now. What do you say?
I say you have a very unpopular law. It has been consistently unpopular since before it was passed. If Obama wants to shut down the government to preserve a very unpopular law, be my guest.
All right, here's the spin. Here's if I had Karl Rove here, and there would be mayhem if I did. He said on many occasions, though, why do this? Why are you guys not getting it? This law will be wildly unpopular. That's when we jump in and there'll be traction. Wait until it starts to go into effect.
Because that is a crass political analysis. In the meantime, people not in Karl Rove's income bracket are watching their premiums double, triple, and they can't afford to wait for that to occur.
Well, not only that, I believe once the law is in, once it's firmly established, as bad as it might be, whatever, you're not getting it out. This is the time to have the showdown.
And we have to use one of the few linchpins we have, which is the funding of the Leviathan, the nearly $4 trillion bill. Look, I was in Austin, Texas for a while when I was a musician, and I started getting into politics when I was in Austin. I've never been a huge fan of Mr. Rove. I always thought he was kind of a squish, and, of course, that has been since borne out.
And very overrated. I mean, I think he's decent, but he's not a genius.
He's not. Look, he won with the son of a president with the same name of a president as governor in Texas when the Reagan Revolution was hitting Texas. And I'd like to additionally point out the only reason Ann Richards was governor in the first place is because the guy she ran against, whose name I'm blanking on, was ahead by like 20 points, and then like 3 weeks before the election said the famous political line, "If rape is inevitable, relax and enjoy it."
Yeah.
So his numbers completely cratered, and Ann Richards walked into the governor's mansion. So Bush comes along and with Rove as his brain and wins the governorship in Texas, which, as you know, not really tough sledding for Republicans to win.
Particularly a Bush with the Bush family and all that behind it. Yeah.
So,
let me turn your seat into one more issue out there. We're starting to see this now, the gear up. Democrats saying today in many places they want to be bold and blatant about these town halls coming up for most representatives, that they're going to storm them. They think that's what the Tea Party did en masse. I was there. It wasn't a strategy. It was grassroots of people that really meant it.
Right. No, it was so organic and so naturally occurring and bubbling from the grassroots up, as you said, that the Democrats did not see it coming. Otherwise, they would have done what they did in subsequent town hall meetings and canceled them.
Yeah, do tell it town halls or no town halls.
Or no town halls. And if they had seen that coming and it was organized and, as they say, paid for by the Koch brothers, they would have canceled in 2009, which they obviously did not. And that was the first public sighting nationally of the Tea Party. Again, you're right. Getting rent-a-mobs to go to town hall meetings to chant slogans, by the way, which is what the McDonald's thing that just happened. The fast food workers are not fast food workers. They're rent-a-mobs from unions and stuff like that. But yeah, it's not the same thing. Once again, the left accuses us of doing what they actually do.
Absolutely.
They accuse us of being rent-a-mobs, but they're the ones doing rent-a-mobs.
Hey, Seaton, thank you very much. Thanks for joining us here, as always, on the Steve Malzberg Show.
It's a great pleasure. Thank you very much. Have a great week, everybody.
All right. Seaton Mobley, president of Less Government here on the Malzberg Show. I'd love to get you on board and watch for this. Watch for the town halls. I believe him said many times with a lot of these Democrats, if you don't hold town halls, I say it with Republicans too as a congressman, you got to hold at least 5 town halls a year, at least 5 a year. If a person's out of line, if they're cursing at you, if they won't shut up after they made their point and you have responded, then you have them removed. But you can't say, no, we're not going to do town halls because people are too raucous. And I've interviewed the woman, Kathy Abraham, the woman who stood up to Arlen Specter, if you remember, in a big town hall in central Pennsylvania around that time, and faced him down and said what the American people were feeling. This is ridiculous around the issue of Obamacare. That was a magical moment. That's what the Tea Party's all about. They're not about rent-a-mobs. They're not about AstroTurf. They're patriots. They're people that are still alive and care. And as much as they get kicked around, it's amazing that they're still there. I know them. They're friends in Philadelphia. Independence Hall Tea Party is a big one, a robust one. And I know Steve speaks at their events all the time. We're believers. These are true patriots. You may not agree with them, but you have to admit they're not a bunch of activists that are paid or on union dues or rent-a-mobs or anything else. They are the average Mr. and Mrs. America, who are concerned about their country and want to take it back. And what's wrong with saying we want to take it back? We want to take it back from Benghazi scandals, from Obamacare, from IRS scandals, from government spying, the NSA. We'll talk to Ted Cruz later in the show about all this. Coming up, I have something special, though. Have you ever watched Steve's show, listen to me, or other talk show hosts? You'll hear a caller or one of these politicians say this phrase repeatedly, fair share. The rich have to pay their fair share. That's not fair. Pay your fair share. You're a free rider. Pay your fair share. Well, I had on the candidate on my own radio show, and we're going to play it for you today out of Philadelphia, for lieutenant governor in New Jersey, the big Christie race. Now, Barbara Blono, who is the candidate for governor, is a radical to the left, but this woman is the head of the SEIU, the purple shirts in New Jersey. They've been involved in any number of thuggish incidents over the years. So she's on with me, and she keeps on hitting me with fair share. So I stop it down. You'll hear in this 3, 4, 5 different ways. What's your definition of fair share? What percentage do you want people who have been successful to pay? So let's say you're making $250,000, $300,000, $400,000 a year. A lot of those folks are paying 50% in state, local, federal taxes. How much do you want them to pay? Wait until you hear her answer or her evasion until she finally admits, I have no detailed answer. When I ask for a ballpark answer, the response is, I'm not going to give you that. Just go to our website. You can read all of our information there. So I would ask people on the left, if you can't tell us what percentage you think the rich should be paying, then how can we have this debate about fair share? We'll play that for you and give you more commentary next on the Steve Malzberg program.
The Steve Malzberg Show.
This is a referral service. Calls will be routed to an independent referral insurance agency. Do you know the number one cause of bankruptcy? No, it's not losing your job or running up credit card debt. It's not even divorce. It's medical costs. If you and your family don't have health insurance, just one serious illness or accident could be financially devastating. But now there's good news, really good news. A health insurance hotline has been established to provide health insurance for all Americans, even uninsured Americans with pre-existing conditions. Now anyone can get health insurance even if you have a pre-existing medical condition. I repeat, now anyone can get health insurance coverage. Call now for a free no-obligation quote on affordable health plans available to you. Again, this is a free hotline for anyone, even if you have pre-existing conditions. Protect you and your family from sudden unexpected medical costs. Call the free health insurance hotline right now at 1-800-910-3470. That's 1-800-910-3470. Call 1-800-910-3470.
Attention hip implant patients. Are you in constant pain? Have you received a letter from your doctor about your implant? Have you had or need a revision surgery? Do you have high levels of metal, chromium, or cobalt in your blood? Over 90,000 hip implant devices have been recalled due to defects and failures resulting in revision or replacement surgery. If you have a recalled hip implant, you may be entitled to substantial financial compensation. Call 800-460-0920 to see if your implant is affected by the recalls. If you or a loved one has a defective or recalled hip implant, you may be entitled to substantial financial compensation. Call 800-460-0920. That's 800-460-0920. Protect your legal rights today. Call 800-460-0920. This is an advertisement, not valid in all states. Paid non-attorney spokesperson. iLawsuit.com is an advertising group that represents lawyers advertising their services and is a free matching service for consumers. It is not a law firm or lawyer referral service.
According to the FBI Uniform Crime Report, there are over 5,000 robberies every day. Your home could be at risk of being burglarized. Don't put your loved ones and valuables in jeopardy. For just over $1 per day, your home can be protected from break-ins, fire, and more. Get the latest home security technology from Protect Your Home, your ADT authorized dealer. Over 6 million households sleep better at night with ADT monitored home security. What's more, Protect Your Home is offering you their latest equipment, an $850 value, absolutely free for qualified customers. Protect your loved ones and home today. Call now for licenses and to find out more. The call is free, 1-800-949-8201. That's 1-800-949-8201. Again, 1-800-949-8201. $99 installation charge, 36-month monitoring agreement at $36.99 per month. Payment by credit card or electronic bank account charge. For new homeowner customers with satisfactory credit history only. Local permit fees may be required. Certain restrictions apply. Cannot be combined with any other offer.
Tired of calls, levies, and liens from the IRS or hiring others who don't get the job done? Call Wall & Associates and you'll never talk to the IRS again. The IRS has a program to eliminate tax debt, and Wall & Associates professionals are trained to maximize its benefits for you. You always speak with a live person with real support and real knowledge. We've helped thousands of taxpayers like you settle their tax debt with the IRS for a fraction of what they owe. We solve tax problems. Call Wall & Associates now. 800-574-6029. We have the professionals who know how to solve tax problems. If you owe money to the IRS, your tax problems are not going away by themselves, and the passage of time will only make matters worse. Act now, before it's too late. Call Wall & Associates right now to speak to a professional tax relief agent. Call 800-574-6029. That's 800-574-6029. Again, 800-574-6029.
Hi, this is Mike Reagan. Folks ask me, what would Ronald Reagan do if he were with us today? I believe the first thing he'd do is stop Obamacare. Already it's in effect with higher taxes, hidden fees, skyrocketing insurance rates, big Medicare cuts, and some insurance plans are hit with a 40% tax. Protect yourself by getting the Obamacare Survival Guide. It's already a #1 New York Times bestseller. Newsmax says it's the best guide to the new law, giving you the strategies, tips, and loopholes you need to know. If you're insured, on Medicare, a business owner, a medical professional, just about anyone, you need this book. Get the #1 bestseller, The Obamacare Survival Guide, at bookstores everywhere. Or get our special $4.95 offer and save $15 off the cover price by going now to Obamacare911.com. Obamacare911.com. That's Obamacare911.com.
The Steve Malzberg Show is just a bit different from the other radio shows. We have TV cameras. Watch the show at Newsmax.com or listen on your favorite radio station. Here's Steve Malzberg.
Hey, welcome in. It is Dom Giordano pinch hitting for Steve here on the Steve Malzberg program. Now, earlier today on my own show out of Philadelphia, I had the opportunity to answer that burning question, or at least try to get an answer for us. What the heck is fair share? I try to ask every big-time Democrat that I can, and I got lucky, and then we had a relative political neophyte answering it. But you hear Democrats all the time, particularly at the national level. Fair share, rich, pay your fair share. What percentage is that of their income? How much should it be? And the answer, they refuse to answer. They look at you as if this is some kind of trick. Is it a trick? Here's part of my conversation with Millie Silva. She is the just brand new lieutenant governor candidate in the big race in New Jersey. She's the head also of the SEIU, the Purple Shirts, who are one of the worst unions out there in my view. Listen to my attempts to get her to define for us what the fair share the rich should pay. What is that, Madam Silva? Here's how it sounded.
What you are seeing is that the middle class in New Jersey has shrunk by nearly 3%, that the percentage of those who are richer and poor has actually increased since 2009. You are continuing to see this increased gap between the wealthy and the poor, and the middle class, which is the foundation of a strong state and a strong economy, is shrinking. Barbara Buono's economic plan is one about saying, look, we need to make decisions and choices where we're going to put the middle class first and then make sure that once we strengthen and grow that group of people, we will know that New Jersey will be stronger.
Okay, but I'm wondering how you do that by punishing these others. How does that do that?
It is not punishing others to ask them to pay their fair share of taxes.
Well, are you aware, what would that percentage be? I mean, I often ask this to people in your position, up and down the line on either side. What do you think a person that's a top 1%er, say they're making $253,000, $400,000 a year, what percentage of their total income do you think they should be paying, state, local, and federal, that would be the fair share?
You know, I would encourage you and your listeners to go to Barbara Buono's website, bonoforgovernor.com, and to take a look at Senator Buono's economic plan.
Yeah, but I'm asking you because, Ms. Silva, this is a frustrating question that our listeners asked me to ask people in your position. You've said fair share a number of times. I'm just trying to calculate then what that would be, because I have the figures of what people means are paying. What would the fair share be in your economic vision?
You know, I don't have that detailed number for you right now.
So do you have a ballpark?
I do not.
Well, don't you think then you ought to stop saying, with all due respect, fair share?
I don't think so. I think that it is really important that we should not run away from fair share. This is about saying that, look, everyday working people, they pay their taxes. They pay their taxes when they go to the store and do their shopping. They pay their taxes when they are paying their tax bill for owning their home. And they obviously also pay their taxes at the end of the year to both the state and to the federal government. This is about making sure that those who can pay to help make sure that we have the resources
you come
we need
here,
for
you come
everyday
here, and we're
people.
talking about expertise and economic vision, et cetera, and you have vast experience, and you can't give me a percentage. And I think it's because you don't want to do that, because I have the figures that they're paying. Corporate is a different thing. We're talking about the individuals and going after them. It's well over 50%. Do you think that's a fair share?
Well, Don, I'm glad that you mentioned the corporations. It sounds like, would you agree that corporations should be expected to pay their fair share to make sure that they're contributing to the New Jersey economy, and also that they're accountable, that if they're going to receive a tax subsidy, that they also create
I agree
jobs
on the
and keep
tax
them in New
subsidy,
Jersey?
but I would take you back again to the average individual, and I would amaze that your campaign doesn't want to answer that question. I agree with you, and we could figure out what the fair share is for corporations, that are getting subsidies. I think that's a dangerous ground. You're right to have to create jobs. But if it's an individual, you still won't give me an answer.
Senator Bono's economic plan is one that asks for the wealthy to pay their fair share to help contribute to the economy. And again, I would really encourage your listeners to go to bonoforgovernor.com and take a look at what she's proposing.
All right, that's Millie Silva, new candidate for lieutenant governor in New Jersey, and a woman who I don't think is all that slick or anything like that. I just think she's been in this bubble, heading up the SEIU and all these radical groups. When they say fair share, no justice, no peace, fair share, no justice, no peace over there, nobody ever asked them to define what the heck is the fair share. What should wealthy people be paying them, or seemingly wealthy people? You look at state, federal, local, she mentioned sales tax, other things, it's well over 50, 55%. Do they want 75%? Is that what they want to take from us? Do they want 80%? They don't want to answer it because they're afraid to put a number on it. So how else would you define fair share? You know what the fair share is? That we have a flat tax. That we have a flat tax across the board, that we get rid of all the loopholes, deductions, exemptions, and that everybody, even at the lower rung, has some skin in the game, that they pay some minimal amount of tax so they just don't vote on everything because of what they're getting back. But Ms. Silva just showed herself to be an embarrassment, even for big-time Democrats. I've interviewed a lot of them. This is one of the more embarrassing that I've ever done, and I'll play it again ad nauseum simply because it shows you, when pinned down and respectfully, given the opportunity, point by point and given time, just tell me what fair share is. Wouldn't you think you'd have some number in mind? Wouldn't Barbara Buono have some number in mind to tell us, all right, this is what I think a fair share is for a person making $500,000 a year. They ought to pay 60% of their total tax, money in tax. Why not say it, Democrats? Why not give us that percentage? No, because it's good to talk about fair share, to get the mob crazy, to say you didn't build that and all this crazy stuff. But it's not so good when you actually put a figure on it. One of the reasons is if you say something relatively low, the rich are already paying beyond that. If you show what you really would want to do, you'd want to confiscate 70 or 80%, well, then you're out it. So let's force anybody that says, we want you to pay your fair share, to give us the exact percentage that we should be paying when it comes to total state, federal, and local taxation. I'll see if I get another go-round with Ms. Silva. Something tells me I may forget that. Hey, coming up, we're going to talk with Congressman Peter King here on the Steve Malzberg Show. A lot of things that he's involved in. Straight ahead, Tom Giordano, pinch hitting for Steve Malzberg.
The Steve Malzberg Show.
Attention hip implant patients. Are you in constant pain? Have you received a letter from your doctor about your implant? Have you had or need a revision surgery? Do you have high levels of metal, chromium, or cobalt in your blood? Over 90,000 hip implant devices have been recalled due to defects and failures resulting in revision or replacement surgery. If you have a recalled hip implant, you may be entitled to substantial financial compensation. Call 800-460-1530 to see if your implant is affected by the recalls. If you or a loved one has a defective or recalled hip implant, you may be entitled to substantial financial compensation. Call 800-460-1530. That's 800-460-1530. Protect your legal rights today. Call 800-460-1530. This is an advertisement, not valid in all states. Paid non-attorney spokesperson. iLawsuit.com is an advertising group that represents lawyers advertising their services and is a free matching service for consumers. It is not a law firm or lawyer referral service.
Hi, this is Mike Reagan. Folks ask me, what would Ronald Reagan do if he were with us today? I believe the first thing he'd do is stop Obamacare. Already it's in effect, with higher taxes, hidden fees, skyrocketing insurance rates, big Medicare cuts. And some insurance plans are hit with a 40% tax. Protect yourself by getting the Obamacare Survival Guide. It's already a #1 New York Times bestseller. Newsmax says it's the best guide to the new law, giving you the strategies, tips, and loopholes you need to know. If you're insured, on Medicare, a business owner, a medical professional, just about anyone, you need this book. Get the #1 bestseller, The Obamacare Survival Guide, at bookstores everywhere. Or get our special $4.95 offer and save $15 off the cover price.
Scroll down now to claim your copy of Obamacare Survival Guide for the special internet offer of only $4.95.
Hello and welcome to your Newsmax Now update. I'm John Bachman. Edward Snowden has now left a Moscow airport after Russia grants him refugee status, ending more than a month in limbo inside the airport's transit area. A lawyer representing Snowden said the American, who is wanted in the United States for spilling secret government information, said he had left the airport for a secure location which would remain secret. Snowden had hoped to fly to Latin America, where 3 countries have offered him shelter, but he was concerned the U.S. would prevent him from eventually reaching his final destination. And President Obama holds an Oval Office meeting today with a bipartisan group of Congress about the administration's surveillance programs. This meeting comes a day after the White House released classified documents relating to those programs. While heavily redacted, they say the NSA programs collect in bulk certain dialing, routing, addressing, and signaling information, but not the content of the calls. Meanwhile, in Las Vegas, while speaking to a cyber conference, NSA Chief General Keith Alexander defended government surveillance programs, saying they do not violate privacy laws. But Alexander was interrupted by hecklers who called him a liar.
No, I'm saying I don't trust you. You lied to Congress. Why would we believe you're not lying to us right now?
But even as intelligence officials were again defending those programs, another secret NSA document was published by the British newspaper The Guardian. The article describes a program called X-Keyscore, which allows NSA analysts to gather large amounts of information for individual internet activity in real time. And today, R.L. Castro faced a judge to learn his sentence for kidnapping and torturing 3 young women and holding them captive for more than a decade. Last week, the former school bus driver pleaded guilty to more than 900 charges. Doing so took the death penalty off the table. New documents reveal that Amanda Berry, Michelle Knight, who was in court today, and Gina DeJesus were allowed to keep diaries detailing their decade of captivity. The girls were chained up by their ankles, fed 1 meal a day, and showered only once a week.
Mr. Castro, is there anything that you would like to say with respect to the sentencing or mitigation of penalty?
I would like to apologize.
Well, Castro faces life in prison without parole plus 1,000 years. And in Cuba, 7 people die and more than 40 are in the hospital after drinking industrial alcohol they thought was rum. Cuba's health ministry says instances like this are extremely rare, but not unheard of. That alcohol is commonly used in medical laboratories and in antifreeze. And next up on your Newsmax Now update, George Zimmerman resurfaces in Texas, and he's in more trouble with the law, albeit for a very short while. What happened after he got pulled over by the cops with a gun in his truck? And a Newsmax exclusive with retired 4-star...
Lignet is sensitive. Lignet is security. What is Lignet? They're the ones taking the world's pulse. If you're not in the know, you're not on Lignet.com. You've been briefed.
Obamacare. More than $1 trillion in new costs. Hidden taxes, fees, big Medicare cuts, doctor shortages. How can we survive?
To know Obamacare is to survive Obamacare. The Obamacare Survival Guide tells you everything you need to know to protect yourself, your family, your business. The Obamacare Survival Guide at bookstores everywhere. Special internet-only offer right now at Obamacare911.com.
This is the worst weather we've seen in quite some time, folks, and I don't see any end in sight. People have been calling in from across the state complaining their basements are flooding. One guy said he now has an indoor swimming pool in his basement. I told him he needs the waterproofing innovations from Basement Systems. If you want a dry basement or crawl space that will weather any kind of storm, you need the patented solutions from Basement Systems. You've seen them on home makeover shows throughout the country. With a lifetime warranty, every solution is custom designed for your basement. You can finally have that room you've always wanted with our total basement finishing system. Call now for a free estimate, and you'll never have to worry about storms like these again.
Call now for your free basement inspection at 800-516-9794, 800-516-9794. Learn how to waterproof your basement now. Call this number, 800-516-9794, 800-516-9794.
And welcome back. George Zimmerman was carrying a gun when he had a run-in with police in Texas. Zimmerman, who was acquitted on July 13th for the shooting death of Trayvon Martin, was pulled over Sunday for speeding on a highway outside of Dallas. He told the officer he had a gun in the glove box, but since he had no outstanding warrants, the officer decided to let him go with just a warning for speeding. And as more highly sensitive information comes out in the wake of the Edward Snowden saga, we get some chilling insight from retired four-star General Michael Hayden, a former head of both the CIA and the NSA. During a Newsmax exclusive interview, Hayden says this security breach is one of historic proportions.
This could end up being the most serious hemorrhaging of American secrets in the history of our country.
And to see more of our exclusive interviews and content, stay with Newsmax.com. This has been your Newsmax Now update for August 1st. I'm John Bachman. Now here's the Steve Malzberg Show.
Are you ready?
5, 4, 3, 2, 1.
Broadcasting live from the Newsmax studios, this is the Steve Malzberg Show. Be a part of the action by calling 855-777-9660. That's 855-777-9660. Or email Steve at malzbergshow@newsmax.com. Here is Steve Malzberg.
Hey, good afternoon, everyone. Welcome in. It's Tom Giordano, pinch hitting for Steve, and one of the real stand-up guys on matters of national security and everything else that is a great go-to as our next guest. Congressman Peter King joins us on the Steve Malzberg program. Congressman, good afternoon. Okay, we're a slight delay for Congressman King. We want to get to him, though, because Peter King is in the news around a couple of big issues. One, we'll talk with him about Benghazi and this CNN interview we've been talking about, and we played some of it for you yesterday. And also, he's tagged in kind of on the side of Governor Christie against Rand Paul when it comes to who has it right about national security. Those people like Rand Paul are concerned about civil liberties, or those people like Governor Christie who said Rand Paul and others could not look these widows and these survivors of 9/11 in the eye. They just couldn't do it. So we'll touch base with him pretty shortly here. A little bit later on, we're going to go to my neck of the woods, Philadelphia, and talk with Phil Sheridan, who's the Philadelphia Inquirer columnist, who wrote a piece today saying that Riley Cooper, the guy in the middle of a national uproar because of his usage of the N-word during a Kenny Chesney concert with a confrontation he had with a black security guard, this guy, Phil Sheridan, I think believes he should be suspended or released by the Eagles, and he thinks this is going to be a huge nightmare that will never go away. And there's already talk of other players putting a bounty on this guy. I think the head of the NFL ought to go public tonight on ESPN or wherever, this show. Roger Goodell ought to say, hey, we're sending the word out right now. There'll be no bounty on this guy. Remember what happened to the New Orleans Saints. Remember what happened to the bounties there. And anybody that attacks him out of line, we're going to be looking at that severely. All right, now, as I said, a real stand-up guy and a guy that is right inside our national security needs. Let's go to Congressman Peter King. Congressman, welcome to the Malzberg Show. Good to talk with you again.
Good to be with you.
Well, Congressman, we saw the CNN Benghazi interview and now the entrails of that today. What do you take away from the fact that a CNN reporter could meet with this guy that the FBI apparently wants to talk with in a coffee shop?
A number of us have known about this for a while. It's absolutely indefensible. I have, in the past few weeks, asked people in positions of authority, I said, how do we explain this? How do you intend to explain this if this person ends up carrying out a terrorist attack and Americans are killed, innocent people are killed because we didn't take the action? This person is hiding in plain sight. It's just, I can't give you an answer. I can just say that this is caught up in a government, bureaucratic, almost, it's just, again, inexplicable. It's like one part of the government blaming the other part and nothing being done. I basically, be honest with you, I'm not trying to make this partisan. This is when, to me, the commander-in-chief has to step in and say action has to be taken. I mean, basically call 3 or 4 people into his office and say, one of you has got to get this done. There's different agencies involved. There's
Right.
different, and just do it. I mean, there's no excuse. This shouldn't take more than 20. This should have been done months ago. It shouldn't take more than 24 hours now to get the job done.
Congressman, too, the time issue here, shockingly, when we saw no Americans that could have come to the aid of these guys over 7 or 8 hours, which is hard to believe. And I believe we're having a retiring general talking about this behind closed doors today. What can you give the American public? Give us a sense of where that part of this is going to figure out why the military didn't respond.
Well, let me just say that the administration has been very successful in dragging this out, and so much now that a good number of the American people think this is old news, and think somehow Republicans are trying to make a phony scandal out of Benghazi. So right now the administration is winning this battle. They really are, and it's terrible to say, but we just have to keep it up. We cannot listen. There are scandals and the scandals. There's mistakes and there's mistakes. But when you have 4 Americans dead, to me, everything else should stop until you find out why it happened, why it was allowed to happen, make sure it never happens again, and go after those who are responsible. This goes beyond the realm of politics. It goes beyond the realm of give and take and back and forth. In the years I've been in Congress, this is to me one of the most egregious errors, not even so much because the mistake was made in the first place, and the mistakes. And, let's face it, in life, in government, whatever, sometimes mistakes happen. But the fact that from the first moment on, there's been a cover-up, that's what's absolutely...
Yeah, and Congressman, I get it. Maybe they shouldn't have been there. Who knows what mistakes, or maybe there wasn't enough security, but not riding to the rescue. That's the part that is inexcusable. Now, let me turn to you. I've seen you on a couple of national shows recently. Putting your foot in the water potentially as a presidential candidate, if you did run, what would be the portfolio? What would be the animating issue driving Peter King to throw his hat in?
The main reason would be that we have to do away with political correctness when it comes to fighting terrorism. We have to put American interests first. We can't be worried about what the New York Times is going to say. We can't be worried about the United Nations is going to say. We have to do what's right for America, and that means taking aggressive action when we think it's in our national interest to take it. And by taking aggressive action, I'm talking about systematic and targeted operations. That ends up saving lives in the long run. It reduces the chances of a larger war. And basically, it's to stop apologizing for America and doing whatever has to be done here and overseas to defeat terrorism.
Hey, and toward that end, I would appoint today, if I had the power, Ray Kelly, the head of Homeland Security. I think that would be a spectacular, finally saying we're putting an unbelievably competent person in charge.
Ray Kelly is a superstar. He and I actually went to grade school. He was 2 years ahead of me, so I didn't know him at the time. And my father did train him actually in the police academy. So I've known Ray for a long time. But more important than that, he's a great commissioner. What he has done is he has set up such a counterterrorism unit in New York, an intelligence unit, that they've stopped 60 different attacks against New York. And on crime, we used to have over 2,000 murders a year in New York. Now we're down below 400. And you know what the result of all this is? The Civil Liberties Union and CARE and the New York Times, the Associated Press, are all either suing or attacking Ray Kelly they accuse him of profiling, they accuse him of violating civil liberties and civil rights. He has the best record of any commissioner in the country. And when you take the fact that we had over 2,000 people killed in previous years, going back into the 80s and early 90s, and now it's down to 400, and when you realize that the overwhelming majority of victims of crime in New York are African-American men, young men in particular, think of all the African-Americans who are alive today in New York because of Ray Kelly's policies, yet the civil rights groups are attacking him and accusing him of profiling and bias and racism. It's absolutely disgraceful.
Well, and Congressman, in Philadelphia, we have people wanting to model what you guys do in New York, which is to put a mandatory penalty on if you have an illegal weapon, and I agree with that, but isn't it the stop and frisk program with probable cause? Isn't that really what's been the driving force here?
It certainly is. One, it takes guns off the streets. It goes into neighborhoods. It reassures people. But more than that, it tells the bad guys they can't go out on the streets.
Yeah,
sometimes.
exactly.
It's been a total success. And also with terrorism, the department has done a phenomenal job. But on crime, the police have taken the streets back. I tell you, I grew up in New York City. My father was a city cop. 30 years ago, you couldn't find anyone who was willing to go in the city late at night, to take the subways, to hang out, to go into different neighborhoods, to go to Times Square. Times Square, you had to race through in your car and hope that you didn't.
Yeah, well, I'm from Philadelphia, and I'd rather be in downtown Manhattan where I'm doing this show with my wife. We were in Times Square last night, And I'm a family of all cops.
Right.
So, yeah, exactly. Now, one quick parting area where maybe we're not in some disagreement, but I really wanted to hear you about Rand Paul on the one side, Governor Christie on the other, and you've been sort of in some of this. And Rand Paul said on my show he'd do a beer summit with Governor Christie. That'd be a good thing to do, I think.
It's up to Governor Christie. I mean, Rand Paul did go after Governor Christie in a way for that whole gimme thing. But again, I'm not going to tell Chris Christie what to do. He and I have had occasional differences, not really on substance, more on personality. Maybe we're too much alike. But I think this is a good debate to have for the party. And, Chris Christie is a tough guy, and I'm sure.
Yeah, I think it's an excellent debate because, I'm watching carefully Rand Paul. If he goes to the way of his father, Ron Paul, I'm not there. But I'm very concerned about civil liberties, the tension between that, and yet giving our law enforcement every opportunity to stop the bad guys. What do you tell listeners here about the NSA and these stories every day, Congressman, that seem to indicate that this is pretty intrusive?
Yeah, actually, I'd say most of those stories are, in fact, almost entirely when it comes to the specifics, are not true. I mean, no American's phone call is listened to by the NSA. Nobody's emails are looked at in this country by the NSA. And no emails have even been collected by the NSA. What they do collect is the phone numbers of calls back and forth with no names, no addresses, just the numbers and the duration of the call and the date. And then if a terrorist number comes in from overseas, they drill it down to see if they've spoken to anyone in the U.S. At that stage, they're allowed to look to see what other numbers they called, but then if they want to listen in the future, they have to go to the FBI. The FBI has to go to court and get a warrant to listen. So the NSA is really stockpiling or storing up numbers and for the purpose of when a future call comes in involving terrorism, that they can drill down on it.
Hey, hope to see you on the presidential trail. You would add a lot to the race, Congressman. Thank you very much for joining us.
I'll be up in New Hampshire this weekend, up in Carroll County in Wakefield. So.
Have a good time there. Thank you, Congressman, very much.
Bye now.
Congressman Peter King with us next. We talk Riley Cooper and the N-word, the Philadelphia Eagles making national news with that. Straight ahead on the Steve Malzberg program.
The Steve Malzberg Show. If you need to lose weight and would like to get paid for it, that's right, I said get paid to lose weight. Just listen to the following announcement. The makers of GCE Green Coffee Bean Weight Loss are looking for real testimonials from real people and will pay you per pound to meet or exceed your weight loss goal. Until now, the secrets of green coffee's fat-burning power has been limited, but thanks to Dr. Oz, the secret is out. And now, this authentic green coffee bean fat burner is available in easy-to-take tablets. There are no expensive meals to buy or strenuous workouts. Simply take one tablet before each meal and record your progress. Only the first 200 callers are guaranteed to be accepted into the program. So if you're serious about losing extra weight and want to earn extra cash for fitting into your skinny jeans again, call 800-383-9230 now. Call 800-383-9230. 800-383-9230. Space is limited, so hurry and secure your spot today. 800-383-9230. Some conditions apply. 800-383-9230. 800-383-9230.
Newsmax Magazine is proud to present special tribute to our 40th president, Ronald Reagan. It's a very special documentary and commemorative issue of Newsmax Magazine celebrating the centennial of President Reagan's birth. First, here's a video clip from the award-winning documentary, Rendezvous with Destiny.
We're in the midst of a springtime of hope for America.
You ain't seen nothing yet.
Impulses of an evil empire.
Tear down this wall.
I believe that together we can keep this rendezvous with destiny.
In the next several minutes, you will learn things about President Ronald Reagan that you've never seen, heard, or read before. Welcome to today's special Newsmax event celebrating the life and legacy of President Reagan. During this historic presentation, we will commemorate President Reagan's storied life. We'll revisit his 2 terms in office and recollect his proudest achievements and greatest challenges. Ronald Reagan's life reads like a fairy tale of success stories. He was an accomplished athlete, an honored veteran, a famous actor, the governor of California, and of course, our nation's 40th president.
He called himself a citizen politician and only entered politics when he warned government was gaining too much power. By then he was age 54. With a successful career behind him. Twice elected President of the United States. Ronald Wilson Reagan was a contradiction to some. Once a Democrat, then a Republican. A champion of smaller government whose own government grew. A fiscal conservative who failed to balance the budget. His critics mistook his affability for weakness, but behind the smile and the charm existed an extraordinary leader with unique skills and bold and revolutionary ideas.
We only had time to share just a few of the top defining moments in Ronald Reagan's presidency, but you'll get to see them all in Rendezvous with Destiny. By the way, the president's close relationship with the Pope is especially fascinating. You'll also learn how dealing with an alcoholic father helped shape Reagan's ability to negotiate. And if you ever wondered what the leader of the free world likes to get for the holidays, well, you'll find that out as well. So let's review today. In this free offer, we are sending you a copy of Ronald Reagan, Rendezvous with Destiny, and the collector's limited edition of our issue commemorating the 100th anniversary of President Reagan's birth.
Right now, when you subscribe to Newsmax Magazine, you can own both the DVD and receive the special Reagan 100th Birthday Commemorative Edition. That's $25 in bonus gifts when you subscribe. Go to newsmax.com/Reagan13 to subscribe today. Join the millions who read Newsmax Magazine every month.
Breaking news and breaking hearts. Aww. This is the Steve Malzberg Show.
Hey, welcome in. My name is Dom Giordano, sitting in for Steve today. Really enjoying time with you. That was Congressman Peter King that we heard from. And Peter King seems to be serious about throwing his hat in presidentially around the issues that he talked about. Glad to hear what he said, too, that he didn't come down hard on Rand Paul and take the Christie side around this and said, yeah, this is a worthy debate to have of our civil liberties versus our protection. Both are in play here, and I go back and forth depending upon the issue around this. He assures us that the NSA is not doing anything with this information, or at least has not done anything. I'm not so sure about that. He's inside the Intelligence Committee, but there's a lot of evidence out there that makes us very, very concerned with this. Now, later on in the show today, we're going to be joined by Senator Ted Cruz from Texas, rising star extraordinaire, bright light, I believe, particularly the conservative wing of the Republican Party. And we are going to play for him the rantings of one Chris Matthews on Hardball. And Matthews, again, I'm going to play this now, then we'll play it right in front of Ted Cruz. Here's Chris Matthews ranting about Ted Cruz being a terrorist, a political terrorist. Here's Chris Matthews.
The purpose of a terrorist, and he used different means, obviously, than blowing bombs, is to cause chaos and to bring down a government because of the chaotic situation where nobody has any trust in institutions. You tell me how that's not what he's trying to do here. Bring the government to default so it's not paying its bills. Stop the government from functioning and bring down bills that have created institutions like Obamacare that have already been decided upon. Blow them up after they were brought into law. Blow up the government's ability to pay bills that has already run up. If that's not causing chaos, what is it?
Wow, Chris Matthews, even for the great man, deranged beyond belief. So now Ted Cruz, lawyer, one of the strongest articulators of issues of liberty, the Constitution. What he's about is trying to cause chaos. Now, what he's about, Chris, is this, that you don't understand. He's about limited government, not this all meandering nanny state that the president talked about probably in faculty lounges and now has an opportunity to implement. Bradley Manning, by the way, is still waiting to hear his sentence. I think the hearing was over today. So we'll see where that comes down. But we're going to talk with Ted Cruz here today on the show, and we're very excited to do that. It's a rare interview, and I will ask him about this. I'll ask him about Obamacare and this tension about trying to get somebody to defund it to see if that would trigger any sort of shutdown of the government. So we'll have that for you here on the Malzberg program coming up shortly. And also coming up, we're going to talk with Phil Sheridan. He writes for the Philadelphia Inquirer. This Riley Cooper story. He's a backup Eagle, wide receiver, big guy. They use him in the red zone. So he's at a Kenny Chesney concert, And he goes off after he gets into a confrontation with a black security guard there, uses the N-word and says he's willing to jump over the fence and fight all these guys that are black. Completely crazy stuff, was drunk. And as a result of that, the Eagles fined him, the NFL fined him, and I'm perfectly fine with that. Well, now, though, the sports writer we're going to have on says that's not enough. He wants him suspended. He wants him possibly released. And he thinks this poisons the locker room a la Michael Vick, who couldn't go back to Atlanta, who was a dog killer. So we'll talk with him about that and the double standards around it and find out who is it okay with. There's stories out here today of various NFL players saying people say the N-word all over the place, on the field, etc. They use it in that manner. So why is this guy now having to go on a tour with the DA of the city of Philadelphia charged with rehabilitating him and taking him around to these charities and these communities and all? This is a complete overreaction, but it's part of the PC world that we live in. So, of course, one group of people can say it. Even rappers that the city pays for to do a big citywide event on Labor Day can say it in Philadelphia. This guy says it once with no history of racial animus, apologizes, is going to pay a hefty fine. I bet it is very, very substantial for the Eagles, and then another fine with the NFL, and that's not enough. Now, I don't like Paula Deen, I'll be clear, but I think what's happened to Paula Deen has been overkill by any estimation that I can see. I don't like her cooking. I don't like the food. I don't like anything about the operation. But, my God, how much does she have to suffer because of her transgression? Is there not some kind, in an era where we have a guy today in Cleveland, the guy that held everybody hostage, the women hostage, Ariel Castro. He comes forward to the judge and says, I'm not a monster. I'm just sick. I have a sex addiction. So with everybody else in the world able to be sick, making mistakes, having a sex addiction, even a monster like this, how is it that Riley Cooper and Paula Deen are taken into the stocks and vilified as if this is the crime of the age? You do this, particularly of Paula Deen. My God, she just crawls with all the things that would set the other side off. You know what the repercussion's going to be. So coming up, we'll talk with Phil Sheridan, Philadelphia Inquirer, a little bit later in the show with Ted Cruz. We'll update you on all the things that are happening with Edward Snowden. And we're also going to talk about another attempt to defund Obamacare coming out of the House of Representatives. So we got it all here for you. And if you feel like giving us a call, that would be great, too. The Riley Cooper story coming to a town near you. By tomorrow, this will be even bigger news. And again, thanks to Peter King. It's going to be interesting to see what he does as he runs for president. All right, my name is Dom Giordano, sitting in for Steve Malzberg. Next, we go to Philadelphia here on the Steve Malzberg program.
The Steve Malzberg Show. You've heard the allegations on the news, and during the big game, pro football players have been using deer antler velvet to get a competitive edge. Banned at the London Games for its performance-enhancing qualities. Forbidden in major sports leagues for being an unfair advantage to athletes. Deer antler velvet is now in stock and available to try for free for a limited time only. Athletes have been using it for years for increased strength, increased endurance, muscle mass stress reduction, and yes, greatly enhanced libido. Everyone's talking about this miracle substance so powerful, it's being banned by professional sports organizations, but for a limited time, it's being made available to the general public. Best of all, you can try it for free by calling 800-678-5153. That's right, get Superior Velvet for free. If you're looking to boost your performance on the field and between the sheets, get the most powerful, proven product used by athletes for years now for free. Claim your free bottle today by calling 800-678-5153. That's 800-678-5153. Again, 800-678-5153.
Don't complain about your cable bill going up and up and up. Do something about it. Grab a pencil and jot down this special number, 1-855-625-MY-TV. The more cable TV rates go up, the better digital satellite TV looks. So cancel the cable and get more of your favorite channels in 100% digital quality for less money. Call 1-855-625-MY-TV. Right now to sign up for packages starting as low as $19.99, and there's no equipment to buy. You get free HD TV upgrade, a free DVR upgrade, and free professional professional installation. You control what you watch when you watch it. Record your favorite shows. Pause and rewind live TV. Even skip the commercials. Watch local channels too. At just $19.99, what are you waiting for? Pull out your major credit or debit card. Call 1-855-625-MyTV. 1-855-625-MyTV. Cancel the cable. Cut costs and get more. 1-855-625-MyTV. 1-855-625-MyTV.
Heart disease is the biggest killer disease in America, and this doesn't surprise me. We are addicted to starches, sugars, fatty meats, and salt. People who live in countries with little heart disease eat very differently. One way some people stay heart healthy is by following what is known as the caveman or Stonehenge diet, so named because of its similarity to the way our prehistoric ancestors ate. People who follow this type of diet live off local fruits and root vegetables and get their protein mostly from fish and wild game they shoot themselves. Now, since most of us don't hunt or fish for all our protein, here are some simple tips on how you can start to eat like a caveman, modern day style. First, fill up on fruits and vegetables. Eat them first and you'll be less hungry. Feast on fish, which is rich in nutrients but not in calories. Choose fatty fish like mackerel, herring, sardines, and salmon, which are rich in heart-healthy omega-3 fatty acids. Get out and go for a walk. Remember, our ancestors were hunters and gatherers, so they didn't spend their time sitting in front of a TV or computer all day. If you live more like a caveman or a cave woman, your heart will love you for it. I'm Dr. Chauncey Crandall, and thank you for watching this Heart Health Minute. Remember, it's never too late to prevent or reverse heart disease. Right now, I invite you to discover your own risk for heart disease or even a heart attack by taking my quick, free online quiz at www.simplehearttest.com.
Where can you find the Steve Malzberg Show? Everywhere. From your smartphone to satellite radio to Newsmax Live TV to Roku, we have you covered. Here is Steve Malzberg.
Hey, welcome into the Steve Malzberg program. We've talked today on Steve's show about Riley Cooper, who's a backup principally for the Philadelphia Eagles, wide receiver. And Cooper in the news because some time ago, I guess it's a month and a half ago, he had some kind of confrontation that's on video with an African-American security guard at a Kenny Chesney concert. And that's when he dropped the N-bomb, saying that he was willing to jump over the fence and use that word to fight these people. Joining us to talk about this and to give us his take, which I think is more severe than what's been meted out so far by the Eagles and the NFL on Riley Cooper, is Phil Sheridan. Phil is a Philadelphia Inquirer sports columnist. Phil, welcome to the Steve Malzberg Show.
Yeah, it's a pleasure. How you doing?
Good, Phil. Well, Phil, your column today was one of the few that I could find locally. Nationally, we're not so sure yet. It's just making its way out. I mean, isn't it enough that the guy's apologized and he's been fined by two entities?
Well, that's a good question. I think my position was that, and you have to kind of understand the context a little bit too. I mean, the Eagles have suspended players over the last few years for missing meetings. You miss a game check because you were late to a special teams meeting. They released Terrell Owens a few years ago for disrupting their locker room and feeling like he was a divisive element on their team. So it's not like in the NFL it's the death penalty to suspend a player for a game for something egregious that they do on or off the field. So in that context, I think a suspension is something that shows that they are putting this matter above mere football concerns. Whereas I think most people see a professional athlete being fined as somebody with a lot of money giving up a little money, kind of a slap on the wrist. So to me, that's the distinction. I think that's a distinction worth making. Everybody's got their own take on it, obviously. if you're comfortable or anybody else is comfortable that's enough, and then so be it. My take was I'd like to see a little bit more of just a sense that whether he can help them win a football game isn't as important as sending out a message here that they don't want to tolerate this behavior.
All right. Well, we know, though, Phil, right, there have been 40 NFL athletes by one count. I've seen various numbers just this year that have been arrested. And you guys have to cover every day some of the most horrific stuff and try to make some sense out of it, be it DWI, beating women, in the case of Hernandez, the guy's up there, an alleged murder. So why would the Eagles then, why would this not be proportional given how many of these guys are violent, have been convicted, felonies even?
Oh no, it's a big problem for the league. There's no question about that. And Roger Goodell, as a commissioner, has really tried to make a reputation, I think, for being pretty heavy with punishments and suspensions and dealing with these problems and having basically their view is you protect the shield and you don't embarrass the shield. The NFL shield is their brand, and so the question here is, yes, obviously on the scale of Aaron Hernandez to Riley Cooper, there's a pretty big gap, but I think when you have a situation like this, you have a fan base that has some percentage of minorities in it. You have a locker room that is the majority of players are African American in the NFL, and by a rather large margin. I think sending the message that this is okay or we're not going to take it that seriously, compared to say missing a special teams meeting, as I said earlier, I just think that's not the message you necessarily want to get across. And I think no, on the scale of he's not going to prison for this, and he's not going to be lose his freedoms or anything like that, and nor should he. It's a
Yeah.
He's going to have to live with this.
Well, Phil, let me tell you, too, a number of my callers today have said stuff along the lines of, and I'll try to phrase it for you, and we've even had one sports writer call it, say that, yeah, he agreed with this statement. Do you think it's okay for African-American players to say it, but not a guy like Riley Cooper, and that's part of what plays into this?
Well, for me, I don't like the word. I don't use the word, and I'm cringed whenever I hear anybody say the word, whether it's Chris Rock on an HBO special.
Do you hear it a lot with football players, though? We hear reports of that also.
I mean, you hear people, yeah, you'll hear players say it, and in hip-hop music and certain parts of the culture, I think, as happens in other areas, the gay community took back the word queer and to make that a word of pride rather than a slight and a slur. I think that a lot of young African Americans, especially, see this as a way to disarm the word, to take it back and use it. But to identify an African American individual who's a security guard making minimum wage at a concert and to throw that word at him as a direct, I mean, that really is a separate thing from the sort of hip hop calling each other by that name as a kind of almost like a term of endearment. So I think there's a big difference. I mean, I don't like it anyway. I don't listen to music or enjoy having it used around me in any context by anybody. But I think this specific thing, he's clearly and as we talked to some players today, a lot of players today. Some off the record didn't want to be quoted, but a lot of players today have said that they really were very unhappy and struggling with it and not prepared to just let this slide by. I think the initial message last night that was pretty carefully gotten out by the likes of Michael Vick and Jason Avant, some of the team leaders, was to try to get the team present a team unity sort of
okay.
stance.
Well, let me ask them with Roger Goodell. Do you think he's going to send any directive out? We already see Marcus Vick tweeting, and his brother, of course, is going after him on that, about bounties, et cetera. We know how the NFL is about bounties with the New Orleans Saints. What are your thoughts on that? And would some of these guys have Riley Cooper's back? He's a marginal player, maybe slightly more than a marginal player, if some guys go after him.
Well, that'll be interesting to see, and that's one of the problems that is sort of, one of the reasons I could see, a team parting ways with a player in the situation, because now you've created this whole thing, and players get hurt all the time, and there's been a huge crackdown on concussion hits, head hits, and that kind of thing. But it happens in the course of the game. Even with the crackdown, it still happens. So if it happens to Riley Cooper, chances are it might be an African-American player who does it. Is that going to automatically create this whole scenario, well, he did it for a reason, or did it just happen because it's a football game? Well, these are all the things that are kind of spun off of this.
I'll take it back to the players, maybe not Phil Sheridan, but back to the Philadelphia Eagles players. Is it your assessment that How do these guys look at some guys in the locker room like they seem to be okay with Michael Vick, who to me did egregious things? I think he's done well since then. That seemed to be okay, but this would be a bigger problem.
Yeah, well, I think that's an excellent point to make, because I had a very difficult time with them signing Vick at the time, and because I feel like you're asking your fans to support and root for a person that they may suddenly realize that they don't care for, what they stand for and who they might be, and that's where the similarity is. Again, what Vick did in terms of egregiousness, I don't think is considerably worse, and he went to prison for it. And
well, what I'm getting at is, Phil, though, what do we do if the mores of the players say, you've heard some of these guys say, maybe not on the Eagles, but I remember some of the Redskins, well, that's cultural, dogfighting, part of the culture, but this is out of bounds. Do they get to be the guiding force on that, or is it Chip Kelly and Jeff Lurie?
Well, I mean, Chip Kelly and Jeff Lurie make the decision whether Riley Cooper's going to be on their team, and right now that's their decision, and that will be interesting to see how it plays out. The players, I mean, they're not one entity. I think you're going to have men who, Jason Avant again is a very devout Christian. He came out and said, I ask God's forgiveness. I'm not going to withhold forgiveness from somebody else. But other guys are, I saw him as a friend, and now I'm not so sure what I got here. So it's going to be a case-by-case basis, and some guys are going to, who know him a little better, might say, hey, he's a little bit of a rockhead when he gets a beer or two in him. I'm not going to hold it against him. Other guys don't know him so well and are looking at him and saying, who is this guy, and can I trust him? It's a really ugly can of worms to open, and he didn't mean to open it, in a way that he get caught. He just said it in a moment, and it was captured on video, and that's the age we live in now. But he's going to wear this thing as a mark on him for probably as long as he plays in the NFL.
Thank you, Phil Sheridan. Thanks very much.
My pleasure. Okay.
Phil Sheridan, the Philadelphia Inquirer columnist here, joining us in the Steve Malzberg program, talking about the issue of this Riley Cooper and the N-word and what he said and what the punishment is. I think it's proportional now. Define him and move on. But here the DA of the city of Philadelphia is going to have to take him on tours. He's going to arbitrate what he says to kids and how he talks about them. Don't you think he ought to talk, as I just did with Phil Sheridan then, about not using the N-word, no matter who you might be? Is that the broader lesson out of this, rather than just going after this guy? And you just heard Phil Sheridan say, just think of the baggage of this versus some of the crimes these guys commit, where that doesn't seem to be that big of a deal. It doesn't stick with you forever like Michael Vick, but dropping the N-bomb in this situation may stick with him for his entire career. Seems to be something's amiss, something's out of proportion there, but that's what's going on in the NFL. All right, coming up, we're going to speak with Congressman Brown about what's happening in the House. He's from Ohio, about the defunding of Obamacare. We know what's happening in the Senate, and a little bit later on, we'll talk with Ted Cruz. Are Republicans on the right track if they think they can defund Obamacare? This is our last best chance to stop this monster before it gets rolling October 1st. That's straight ahead. Dom Giordano sitting in for Steve Malzberg.
The Steve Malzberg Show.
Are you at least 62 years old like me? Could you use an extra $50,000, $100,000 or more to live a better life? Then please consider the benefits a reverse mortgage can provide to you. With a reverse mortgage, you can have your mortgage payments stopped altogether and get equity out of your home to live on. And you can use the money to help you live a better life. How nice would that be, not to have a mortgage payment? Qualifying for a reverse mortgage is simple, since there are no income, asset, employment, or credit requirements. However, you must be 62 years or older, own your home outright, or have a very low balance on the mortgage, and be prepared to live in it throughout the rest of the loan. Call now for more information.
800-831-1560. 800-831-1560. 800-831-1560. That's 800-831-1560.
Meet Jim. Like many of us, Jim enjoys a busy life. Between work, family, and friends, his days zip along. And Jim has the energy to tackle almost anything. But lately, Jim's get up and go has literally taken on a new meaning. Jim's always put focus on a full night's sleep. But it seems like these days, he's up and down to go to the bathroom so many times he can barely wake up in the morning. His prostate concerns have him sad, tired, and worried. Activities that were once enjoyable now seem like a chore for Jim. His golf game is at the mercy of his bathroom schedule. Family outings are planned around it too. Jim even has difficulty going to the bathroom. He's tried so many prostate remedies he can't keep them straight, and nothing ever seems to help. Then Jim found out about Prostate Revive, the all-natural dietary supplement specifically formulated for men, targeted towards improving and sustaining normal prostate function. Prostate Revive includes 15 super ingredients never combined before, including saw palmetto extract, beta-cytosterol, pomegranate fruit extract, selenium, and other high-quality nutrients. These targeted and all-natural ingredients promote healthy urinary flow and optimal prostate health. And the best part is, Prostate Revive was developed by a renowned medical doctor. Dr. David Brownstein personally formulated Prostate Revive with one goal in mind: to promote a healthy prostate gland. Thanks to Prostate Revive, Jim's got his life back. He gets a full night's sleep every night, and his friends and his wife can't believe he's the same guy. He has his old energy back, and no one has to wait for him. He doesn't even think about his prostate concerns anymore. Visit MedicSelect.com to take back your nights and improve your quality of life with Prostate Revive.
We're in the midst of an obesity epidemic, and I'm not surprised. The statistics on obesity mirror an increasing trend of eating out or ordering in. In fact, some people dine out every night. But eating in restaurants is one of the biggest enemies of your heart. When you're in a restaurant, you don't really know what you're getting. And the calorie counts of many restaurant dishes are astronomical. In fact, some single dishes contain more calories than we should eat in an entire day. Eating in fast food restaurants is even worse. A diet of hamburgers, French fries, and shakes constitutes a fast lane to the emergency room. If you really want to help your heart, get in the habit of cooking simple meals at home. Here are 3 easy tips that will make your food taste better than even the best restaurant. Choose the best fruit in season. Your local farmer's market is a great place to start. It will probably still cost less than that pie you were thinking of buying. Get in the habit of using fresh herbs. You can use them in egg white omelets or dust them on the fish you grill or bake. And for a light dessert, choose a square or 2 of dark chocolate that you and your spouse can enjoy. There are lots of ways to make your heart healthy, but there are also lots of ways to damage it. That's why I wrote Fix It, Dr. Crandall's 90-day program. In it, I'll tell you how to kickstart your metabolism every day, how to pick the best diet for you, how to stop hunger from sabotaging your diet, the 7 superfoods for your heart. I'm Dr. Chauncey Crandall, and thanks for watching this Heart Health Minute.
The Steve Malzberg Show is just a bit different from the other radio shows. We have TV cameras. Watch the show at Newsmax.com or listen on your favorite radio station. Here's Steve Malzberg.
Hey, welcome in, everyone. It's Dom Giordano, pinch hitting for Steve. Joining us next on the Malzberg Show is Congressman Paul Brown. The congressman has something amazing in Washington. Something that's only 77 pages and could get at, replace, and repeal the 2,700-page Leviathan called Obamacare. Congressman, by the time we get done this interview, it might be 2,710 pages.
Well, I think the regulatory rate is growing faster than what you're talking about. But we've got to get rid of Obamacare. And my Patient Option Act will do just exactly that. It is a across-the-board healthcare financing reform that reforms every aspect of healthcare financing, and it will repeal Obamacare.
What is the key element that would differ that you propose that would get at the heart of this?
Well, first thing, we've got to get rid of Obamacare because it's already harming our economy. It's killing jobs today, and it's we already see how disastrous Obamacare is going to be for everybody. It's going to it's going to break budgets, from family budgets all the way to the federal budget. It's going to destroy the doctor-patient relationship. It's going to harm the quality of health care and stop innovation in this country. It's just going to be disastrous if it stays in place. And my Patient Option Act would repeal it. It makes health care affordable for everybody. It will literally make health insurance cheaper for everybody. It provides coverage for all Americans. And it's going to save Medicare from going broke. It does this in a patient-centered, market-based health care plan, and that's what my Patient Option Act does in 77 pages.
Yeah, and some of the elements of this would allow consumers to purchase health insurance across state lines, make it easier for groups to establish association health care plans. Just as you said, the free market and the normal forces that are out there with everything else, there's a sense, though, and you're an MD, what do you say to people who are skeptical? They say, yeah, this all sounds good, but you don't fool around with health care like it's a commodity.
Well, it doesn't deal with health care like a commodity, but health insurance is something that people purchase, and they go and purchase health services from providers across the country.
Mm-hmm.
And what this will do is it makes health care expenses, including insurance, 100% tax deductible for everybody. It expands health savings accounts and will allow people to own and control those health savings accounts. It moves Medicare to a flexible premium assistance program and establishes Medicare health savings accounts that, again, the patients own and control. It does do the two things that you said. It allows people to buy health insurance anywhere in the country where they can shop for health insurance in any state
Mm-hmm.
and can buy health insurance just across state lines. It does allow people or businesses to join an association. You can have these huge pools across
Mm-hmm.
this nation where people will have a whole smorgasbord of health insurance options where they can buy what's right for their family. It creates a tax credit for donations for individuals when they give money to a free health clinic where, and as an example, we've got Mercy Health Clinic in Athens, Georgia, where I've spent a lot of my time seeing patients. I don't get paid for it. The patients come in, they have, if they can't afford to pay anything, they don't pay anything. And
right.
We've got to stimulate this by giving people a tax credit for contributing to indigent care. Plus, it gives physicians a tax incentive to see patients for nothing in their office.
Okay, now this is the Patient Option Act for viewers here to the Malzberg Show. I guess it was yesterday, Doctor, we saw this whole energy drink crisis become more part of the public consciousness. I know with sons, I have teenage son. You see it. We've talked about it. Where do you come down on this? Do you think this was necessary to bring this into the Senate? And if so, what's the danger toward teenagers and a little bit post-teen?
Well, I think people need to make decisions for themselves.
Okay.
We need to be a nation where people are responsible and accountable for their own actions to themselves, and it's something we see in New York, for instance, where your mayor wants to of New York City wants to tell us what kind of food to eat and what size drinks to have, and this is just an extension of that idea that government needs to make decisions for everybody, for everything, and that's totally wrong. It's against freedom. It's against what our founding fathers meant for government to do, and this intrusion into people's lives has to stop. People need to make those kind of decisions.
I would agree. How do you come down as a physician, though? Have you studied these? Have you taken a look at them? Do you see them just as caffeine, or a little bit more as a layman that I do? It's a little bit more complex than that, and not something that I necessarily want to be engaged in. I don't think it's the most deleterious thing out there, but what's your sense of the science on this?
Well, these high levels of caffeine can cause problems from a medical perspective, but people need to make those decisions themselves.
Mm-hmm.
I'm in the Navy Reserve as a medical doctor. I was deployed to Afghanistan, and I saw those troops over there, those soldiers and Marines, drinking these things that they call monsters, and there was another name for another drink that they drank that was, I was scared to drink them. I was scared to even taste them because of the high levels of caffeine and this energy boosting product. So, but people have to make those decisions for themselves. And what my Patient Option Act will do is it will help people to understand that their decisions that they make will affect them monetarily. And so
we have to be better consumers, just like if we were shopping for a car or whatever it might be. Exactly. When it comes to health care, we don't seem to care about the cost, and the people providing it sometimes don't seem to care about the quality.
All that's exactly true. And the thing is, what we have to do is empower patients to make good decisions, where they can work with their doctor to make all health care decisions. But if you give them some economic incentive because they control the dollars, then what they'll start doing, and we've seen it happen over and over again through health savings accounts when they've been put in place in businesses, people stop smoking, for instance. They start exercising and losing weight. They start eating better because those decisions, whichever way they make them, are going to affect them monetarily. And
exactly.
Money drives everybody, so we've got to empower patients to make those decisions, and they have to have the economic incentives to live a good, healthy lifestyle instead of government dictating what people should be doing.
Absolutely.
Let me give you another example.
Sure. We have time, about a minute, Doctor.
Okay. As a medical doctor, I know helmets for bicycle riders and motorcycle riders certainly help prevent head injuries, but it's not government's place to mandate those to somebody who's riding a motorcycle or bicycle. In my opinion, and I'm fighting for liberty here, and that's what this is all about for me.
Well, absolutely. The Patient Option Act. Good luck with this. Please come back again. We'll talk about it because it has all the elements, I agree, that would have people make their own best decision. Thanks very much, Doctor.
Thank you so much. Appreciate it.
Dr. Paul Brown, Congressman Paul Brown, too. Two hats here talking about this. And you heard what he said about the energy drink thing. I think these things are, I'm not going to say dangerous, but yeah, with my kids, not a good idea. Not something that, particularly with younger kids, that they should be engaged in. But he's right. It's up to parents. It's up to adults to inform themselves and parents to have the conversation with their kids. And some of the names of these things, Monster, Red Bull, you've seen the ads. Even Jim Furyk, a golfer, doing them. So it's all over the place. And some of them are relatively like cups of coffee. Others, you heard the doctor, are pretty severe. It's something to take a look at, though. The Senate being involved in this, that seems to be out of line. Okay, we're following some big stories coming up, and excited in the next hour of the Steve Malzberg program, we will have Senator Ted Cruz here. And we played you some of the sound of people going after him. He's being called a political terrorist by people like Chris Matthews, who just wants to blow up the government, shut it down, have no government. He's anti-government. We'll play that for him and ask him about it and catch you up on everything else that's happening in the news. My name is Dom Giordano, sitting in for Steve Malzberg.
The Steve Malzberg Show. $150 million people suffer from headaches. All you want is for the pounding in your head to stop. Migralex stops the pounding. Migralex was developed by a neurologist and founder of the New York Headache Center.
I'm neurologist Dr. Alex Malzberg. After studying and researching the human brain for 25 years, I've developed Migralex, which eliminates pounding headaches. It works for my patients, and I'm so convinced it will work for you. I don't just guarantee it, I put my name on it.
Dr. Malzberg's Migralex gets rid of headaches fast without harsh caffeine, sodium, or preservatives.
Migralex works unbelievably fast, and it's gentle on my stomach.
Find out how to get your free bottle of Migralex. Call 800-532-2967. Plus, if you're one of the first 100 callers, you'll also receive the Migralex Quick Tips to Headache Relief absolutely free. That's 800-532-2967. Or go to migralexrelief.com. MIGRALEX relief.com. Or call 800-532-2967.
If you are successful at what you do, whether you're a doctor, a lawyer, a business owner, or you have a great career, you understand the concept of protecting yourself. Well, are you protecting yourself, your family, and your assets with quality term life insurance? Consider these possible rates. A man age 45, non-tobacco user could obtain $1 million of coverage for as little as $75 a month. And this rate is fixed for the next 10 years. We specialize in policies of $500,000 and above. A man age 50, non-tobacco user may be able to obtain $500,000 of coverage for as little as $115 a month. And this rate is fixed for the next 20 years. We have great rates for smokers too. Call the Term Lifeline now. 800-430-1309, 800-430-1309, 800-430-1309.
Hello and welcome to your Newsmax Now update. I'm John Bachman. Edward Snowden has now left a Moscow airport after Russia grants him refugee status, ending more than a month in limbo inside the airport's transit area. A lawyer representing Snowden said the American, who is wanted in the United States for spilling secret government information, said he had left the airport for a secure location which would remain secret. Snowden had hoped to fly to Latin America, where 3 countries have offered him shelter, but he was concerned the U.S. would prevent him from eventually reaching his final destination. And President Obama holds an Oval Office meeting today with a bipartisan group of Congress about the administration's surveillance programs. This meeting comes a day after the White House released classified documents relating to those programs. While heavily redacted, they say the NSA programs collect in bulk certain dialing, routing, addressing, and signaling information, but not the content of the calls. Meanwhile, in Las Vegas, while speaking to a cyber conference, NSA Chief General Keith Alexander defended government surveillance programs, saying they do not violate privacy laws. But Alexander was interrupted by hecklers who called him a liar.
No, I'm saying I don't trust you. You lied to Congress. Why would we believe you're not lying to us right now?
But even as intelligence officials were again defending those programs, another secret NSA document was published by the British newspaper The Guardian. The article describes a program called X-Keyscore, which allows NSA analysts to gather large amounts of information for individual internet activity in real time. And today, R.L. Castro faced a judge to learn his sentence for kidnapping and torturing 3 young women and holding them captive for more than a decade. Last week, the former school bus driver pleaded guilty to more than 900 charges. Doing so took the death penalty off the table. New documents reveal that Amanda Berry Michelle Knight, who was in court today, and Gina DeJesus were allowed to keep diaries detailing their decade of captivity. The girls were chained up by their ankles, fed 1 meal a day, and showered only once a week.
Mr. Castro, is there anything that you would like to say with respect to sentencing or mitigation of penalty?
I would like to apologize.
Well, Castro faces life in prison without parole plus 1,000 years. And in Cuba, 7 people die and more than 40 are in the hospital after drinking industrial alcohol they thought was rum. Cuba's health ministry says instances like this are extremely rare, but not unheard of. That alcohol is commonly used in medical laboratories and in antifreeze. And next up on your Newsmax Now update, George Zimmerman resurfaces in Texas, and he's in more trouble with the law, albeit for a very short while. What happened after he got pulled over by the cops with a gun in his truck? And a Newsmax exclusive with retired 4-star General Michael Hayden on the amount of damage the NSA information leaked by Edward Snowden could potentially cause. That's next.
In 2013, half of your friends, family, and neighbors may lose their jobs, all while you are robbed of 90% of your life savings, investments, and home's value. Controversial economist Robert Wiedemer, who was the only expert to predict the recession, has released a startling video with shocking evidence that the powers that be have tried to ban. But that hasn't stopped 50 million people from getting the truth. Watch it at AftershockVideo.com. AftershockVideo.com. In 2013, half of your friends, family, and neighbors may lose their jobs, all while you are robbed of 90% of your life savings, investments, and home's value. Controversial economist Robert Wiedemer, who was the only expert to predict the recession, has released a startling video with shocking evidence that the powers that be have tried to ban. But that hasn't stopped 50 million people from getting the truth. Watch it at Aftershock911.com. Aftershock911.com.
I love you, son, so it hurts when you say I hate you. I'm your mother. I'm tired of you disrespecting me when you don't get your way. I work hard to make sure you have everything you need. I should be able to ask you to get out of bed in the morning without a fight. So from now on, things are going to be different. I ordered the Total Transformation Program. We're not going to scream and fight anymore. I'm going to tell you what to do in a different way, and you're going to do it. You're not going to call me ugly names anymore, and if you do, you're going to get consequences that'll keep you from calling me ugly names. We're not going to do things your way anymore, son. We're going to do things the Total Transformation way.
Get the Total Transformation free. Just order the program, tell us how it works for you, and you can keep it for free. Call 1-888-577-9520. 1-888-577-9520. Call now. Call 1-888-577-9520. 1-888-577-9520.
And welcome back. George Zimmerman was carrying a gun when he had a run-in with police in Texas. Zimmerman, who was acquitted on July 13th for the shooting death of Trayvon Martin, was pulled over Sunday for speeding on a highway outside of Dallas. He told the officer he had a gun in the glove box, but since he had no outstanding warrants, the officer decided to let him go with just a warning for speeding. And as more highly sensitive information comes out in the wake of the Edward Snowden saga, we get some chilling insight from retired four-star General Michael Hayden, a former head of both the CIA and the NSA. During a Newsmax exclusive interview, Hayden says this security breach is one of historic proportions.
This could end up being the most serious hemorrhaging of American secrets in the history of our country.
And to see more of our exclusive interviews and content, stay with Newsmax.com. This has been your Newsmax Now update for August 1st. I'm John Bachman. Now here's the Steve Malzberg Show.
Are you ready? 5, 4, 3, 2, 1.
Broadcasting live from the Newsmax studios, this is the Steve Malzberg Show. Be a part of the action by calling 855-777-9660. That's 855-777-9660. Or email Steve at malzbergshow@newsmax.com. Here is Steve Malzberg.
Hey, welcome in, everyone. Good afternoon. Dom Giordano pinch hitting for Steve. Big story we're following today, of course, is the Russians have granted Edward Snowden asylum. And this puts the Putin and Obama summit certainly in doubt, among other things. We have a guest with wide experience, though, in international law. Douglas McNabb is an international attorney, and he's been here many times on the Steve Malzberg Show. He's senior principal at McNabb Associates. Douglas, welcome back to the Steve Malzberg Show. Oh, okay. A little technical problem here. All right. A little bit. I'm the one that's off here, guys. We'll talk with Douglas McNabb coming up with Dom Giordano sitting in for Steve Malzberg about the repercussions of this. I'm looking at some of the stories on this today. 50% of Russians are supportive of Snowden. I thought it would be higher, but maybe they don't want him either. Maybe they realize, we've just seen here prior to the Malzberg Show, General Hayden, former head of the CIA, talking about the severe damage caused by this reckless individual. And we'll talk to Douglas McNabb about whether or not we will ever see Snowden stand trial. We're still waiting for the sentencing on Bradley Manning. That's still ongoing. He was having his hearing, the back and forth today after he's been found guilty on 15 counts of espionage. And Manning is worse with WikiLeaks in that he was in the U.S. military. But the issue with Edward Snowden is the information he's already leaked, or the information that he has, could be even more damaging than what we've seen with Bradley Manning. Certainly it seems to be more heavy duty. That's why Snowden is a bigger threat. Hey, a couple of other things in the news as we wait to see what happens with these stories. In Newtown, Connecticut. Remember that? I can remember the day I was on the air as this came down in the afternoon, and we started to hear these startling figures of the numbers of these kids that have been shot to death. And then we started to see the byplay. We started to see the Obama administration, rather than worrying about jobs and the economy, take their eye off the ball and think they were going to swoop in and grab more guns and have something like the assault weapons ban that we used to have. Well, I'm looking at a Newsmax story, and it indicates that gun sales are surging in Newtown, Connecticut, despite the school shootings. And it appears to be, despite all these laws, despite some of the parents that you see, and you got to feel for these parents that are out there talking about more restrictions, a number of them have been on my show in Philadelphia, that gun sales may have even peaked to numbers that are unprecedented in that Newtown, Connecticut area. Could it be that people, A, are fearful that some of these laws will be passed and they won't be able to get weapons to protect themselves, and B, seeing what happened here, are saying they don't want to be a victim, they don't want to be caught with their guard down and have someone burst in, as this guy did, I just call him the shooter, and kill their family. So it's pretty interesting to see that's the reaction. Wouldn't you expect it would be the other way around? Not so. Also, George Zimmerman in the news again. Since the trial, Zimmerman, we have seen, has rescued 4 people in an overturned SUV. And yesterday, I believe in Texas, was found to be speeding and had a loaded gun in his glove box, which, according to Texas law and everything else, all the permits he has every right to have that. People are shocked that George Zimmerman is still out there with a gun after the Trayvon Martin case. But the bottom line is he has every legal right to do that. This should be no biggie. So the Texas police gave him a citation for speeding, and that was it. And that makes a lot of sense. But watch for more Zimmerman sightings, and a guy who, wherever he goes, at least for a year or two, I think, there's going to be a lot of celebrity, a lot of downside with this, a lot of threats. So certainly he has to be armed. Who would protect George Zimmerman? How would you protect him? He's not the president. He's not going to have around-the-clock protection. He has to protect himself. And I saw his father in a cable news interview talking about how difficult it is for them, how many death threats they still get, the entire family. So it's sad, by the way, that the family that Zimmerman rescued in that SUV didn't feel they could go and do TV interviews citing that because of the threats that they had got. So you have to ask yourself, where does this end? The stand your ground laws, it's ridiculous to blame that law. It had nothing to do with this case, and yet that is the cause célèbre as we speak. So we'll see more on George Zimmerman in coming days, without a doubt, and we'll update you on that when it occurs. In addition to that, as I said, we're going to talk with an international lawyer about Edward Snowden and about the possibilities of ever getting him back here to the United States, about the possibilities. Now, Putin has said that he must cease his anti-American activities. I'm not exactly sure what that means, other than Putin and the others are working him for intelligence, for information. He has 1 year that he'll be given asylum for, and our guests will lay out the particulars of that and what we can do to get him back. And I think the American public, remember that initial spasm with Snowden? People saying he's heroic. There's still a few people out there that want to give him a medal and Bradley Manning a medal. Please. This guy is a low-level guy with visions of grandeur. And the bottom line is he could have gone, I've asked various people like Senator Pat Toomey and others, he could have gone to them with this information, and it would have gotten processed. It would have gotten out to us about the NSA and some of the things that we have to rein in with the metadata stuff that they're doing, all the information they're collecting. But not to put at risk any number of things that the American military and intelligence units are doing so that the Chinese, the Soviets, and others will have the ability to stop us. And, you know, the fact that we've been spying on various people and all that it's gotten out there, it's embarrassing, but I'm glad that we are. So we'll see a lot more on Edward Snowden, and we'll talk with our guest about that. Then don't forget, Ted Cruz is with me today. Toward the top of this hour, Ted Cruz, Senator Ted Cruz, one of the real rising stars. Big interview to get. We talk with Rand Paul. He's in the league with Rand Paul. And we'll ask him about Karl Rove. He wants to debate him. We'll talk with him, too, about Chris Matthews calling him a political terrorist who just wants to blow up the government and win by default. All that straight ahead. Dom Giordano pinch hitting for Steve Malzberg.
The Steve Malzberg Show.
Obama wants your money, and he's determined to get it. He wants your money to buy off unions, his Wall Street cronies, and to expand the Obama welfare nation. Well, Swiss America is determined to stop him from stealing your money. They want to send you an award-winning film, I Want Your Money, on DVD that exposes his plan. It'll help keep the government's hands off your money using gold, silver, and other hard asset strategies to protect your hard-earned money. Call today and request the DVD, I Want Your Money, normally $19.95, yours absolutely free. Let Swiss America show you how to use gold, silver, and other hard assets to protect your hard-earned money. Call now. 800-978-3907. 800-978-3907. Call Swiss America right now. Learn all about investing in gold. 800-978-3907. That's 800-978-3907. Call right now.
Bad credit card debt happens to good people. Credit card companies lure you in with low introductory rates or low minimum payments, and before you know it, you owe thousands of dollars in credit card debt. It has happened to millions of good people just like you. But here's the good news. Thanks to a powerful program now approved, anyone with $2,000 or more in credit card debt can cut their credit card payments up to half and even reduce or eliminate interest charges altogether. That's right. Our nationwide nonprofit program is helping U.S. residents cut their credit card payments. Call 800-613-3159 now. The call and information are free. We've helped over 500,000 people with their credit card debt, and now we can help you. Call 800-613-3159 to see how this powerful nonprofit program can work for you. Bad credit card debt happens to good people. Get free of credit card debt today. Call 800-613-3159. That's 800-613-3159. Again, 800-613-3159.
Hi, this is Dick Morris. Obamacare is taking full effect this year with over 15,000 pages of regulations. You need to know how this law affects you. That's why you should get your copy of Obamacare's Survival Guide. It's easy to read and the best guide to the new law. Even if you're currently insured or a senior on Medicare or a business owner, a medical professional, or really any citizen, you need the Obamacare Survival Guide. In it, you'll find about hidden taxes, fees, and fines, including a 40% tax on some health plans. I warned you about Obamacare. It's rationing, Medicare cuts, and will trigger doctor shortages. Now the Obamacare Survival Guide gives you the simple steps to protect your family. So get the Obamacare Survival Guide at bookstores everywhere. It's already a #1 Amazon bestseller. Or get our special $4.95 offer and save $15 today by going to Obamacare911.com. Obamacare911.com. That's Obamacare911.com.
Health insurance is on everybody's mind right now. You either don't have it, or you have it and you think it's too expensive. And you probably feel like you don't have any options. We can help. We are InSphere Insurance Solutions. We offer health insurance plans from major carriers nationwide and likely have a plan that can save you money. Whether you're self-employed, on a COBRA plan that's about to expire, or you simply don't have health insurance where you work and you need it, InSphere Insurance Solutions can help you. Our agents will help you find coverage you can afford. InSphere Insurance Solutions is an authorized agency in all 50 states, including the District of Columbia. Plans may not be available in all states. 800-980-9325. 800-980-9325. 800-980-9325. 800-980-9325.
Sure, Steve might be a bit of a hypochondriac, but he never gets sick of breaking news. This is the Steve Malzberg Show. Call Steve at 1-855-777-9660. That's 1-855-777-9660. Here's Steve.
Hey, welcome in, everyone. Tom Giordano pinch hitting for Steve. And our next guest, Douglas McNabb, is an international attorney and senior principal at McNabb Associates. He's also been a frequent guest here on the Steve Malzberg Show with the continuing shenanigans and country hopping of Edward Snowden, who finally has settled into a new villa, well, maybe, in the former Soviet Union in Russia. Hey, Douglas McNabb, thank you very much for joining us.
Dom, it's a pleasure. Thank you for having me.
Well, tell us what jumps out at you before I try to direct any of it. You're the guy with a lot of expertise in the stuff that you've done. What jumps out at you about this case? Is it garden variety in any way?
No.
Okay.
Not in the slightest, Dom. I think that there's a U.S. Supreme Court case that says that it is okay for a federal agent to go into another country and kidnap someone in contravention of that other country's laws and bring them back to the U.S. To stand trial, and that kidnapping is not the basis to have charges dismissed. I do not see that happening. Absent that, I think that Mr. Snowden may very well have safe haven. Now, I've made a quick note, Dom, of 5 things that I think that could cause Mr. Snowden to lose that safe haven status. Number one is that if there were a change in the Russian political environment, Putin's out, somebody else is in that doesn't
right.
look on Snowden as favorably. The second would be if Mr. Snowden were to violate the condition that President Putin set, that is, stop your whistleblowing/leaking, he continues on, then I could see President Putin booting him out. The third would be if he thinks that the U.S. has forgotten about him. Not. Let's say 5 years or so from now, because that's not going to happen. Surely there's a red notice out there at this point. Those can last a lifetime, as well as the U.S. indictment. So the U.S. isn't going to forget about him. The fourth would be if he thinks that he has safe passage and has it all planned out and attempts to do that, leaves Russia and gets nabbed. Or the last one, the fifth one, may sound a bit as a far stretch, but I've been doing this for over 30 years, and I don't think it's a stretch. That's Dad. If the U.S. government believes that they could bring a case against Dad for obstructing justice, I note that that Dad is trying to make plans, for his sake, I hope, with his U.S. counsel, but to go to Russia to visit with his son. But if the U.S. government could go after Dad, charging him with obstruction of justice by aiding his son in evading the judicial process, that may very well put pressure on Mr. Snowden to return. We see that happening a fair amount in domestic U.S. federal criminal cases, where the government will say, "Look, we're going to charge your wife, unless you fall on the sword." So I wouldn't put it past the U.S. government to do something like that.
You do see that. You'd think the Obama administration is hell-bent if no other shoes drop. Your read is that they are, as time passes a little bit, determined to get this guy until what? Saying that we got our man, that there's some political gain by doing that?
Well, I think that's true, frankly, of any federal criminal defendant.
Right.
The U.S. government, if they indict someone, their goal is to bring them, as they say, to justice, whether domestically or on an international front, where they would seek to have them extradited and returned to the U.S. This case for Mr. Snowden is not going to go away, whether we're talking a month, a year, 10 years, or more from now.
What's your sense, too, with what we hear, what you talked about with Putin saying no more activities? Does that mean probably nothing that's going to make his situation more difficult with us, but that he may be giving them information?
Well, I think that I read that as they don't want to see Mr. Snowden actively releasing documents and really taking an active role. His argument, I suspect, is going to be, I don't have anything left. Everything has been turned over to the Post and the Guardian, and whatever other newspapers or whatever. And so I think he may very well just sit back and let somebody else do his bidding for him.
Let me ask you, this administration, Matthew, your sense with vast legal experience monitoring this stuff, what's your sense of the Obama administration, and what's their record on allowing asylum of people coming into this country?
Well, that certainly falls within the immigration arena, and asylum is something that U.S. law recognizes, and whether it's refugee status or a political asylum, we certainly have granted political asylum to.
I'll tell you why I'm asking that. I'm trying to gauge how out of line is this, what Putin is doing versus what we have done. I'm thinking of the Shah, for example, of the back and forth over asylum. I do think it is out of the norms. I think it is pretty clear that if we're friendly with the Russians, then that this was inappropriately handled. How do you see this around each country having their own sense of things versus the idea that most Americans think this is Putin, putting a thumb in the eye here, and President Obama may not do the summit with him?
Well, we have individuals that are Russians that have been granted political asylum in the U.S. There is a legal process available. And what makes it a bit more interesting, the relationship between U.S. and Russia, is that there isn't an extradition treaty between the two states. And, of course, the Russian government has said we don't extradite because we don't have an extradition treaty, and the U.S. ambassador countered and said, I'm not asking you to extradite, I'm asking you to return him. We have returned, if you will, the U.S. have returned individuals to Russia, and certainly no one on this level, frankly. But we've returned some individuals to Russia because you requested that, and now we're requesting Mr. Snowden to be returned. This is very important to us, and we want him back.
Yeah, absolutely. Douglas McNabb, thank you very much, and particularly thank you for those 5 points you put up that seem to indicate that at some point in time we'll probably get Snowden.
Well, I'm not going to say that, but there are certain areas that Mr. Snowden has some weaknesses in. But I don't think this case is going to go away from the U.S.
Yeah, I agree with you on that. Thank you, Matthew. Thanks for joining us tonight.
Take care now. Bye-bye.
There's Matthew McNabb, international attorney and senior principal at McNabb Associates, here on the Steve Malzberg program. I want to believe that this won't go away with Snowden, but if he doesn't do too many other things, I wonder how much the American public will still be crying. Remember, this is the guy that people thought was a hero early on. I even had people calling me yesterday with Bradley Manning that wanted to give him a medal. Yeah, maybe they did it outside the law and all the rest of it. But come on, Dom, what's the big deal? What's the big deal? These people compromised us big time, particularly Snowden. God knows how much information he shared with the Russians, the Chinese, how many laptops he took out of the country. And the frightening thing was he was at a relatively low level as a private contractor, yet he had access to some of the biggest secrets, some of the most embarrassing things at best and at worst, true methodologies that we use in fighting the war on terror, in fighting the friendly enemies, the Chinese and the Russians, we are not really friends with, and this whole deal with Putin bears that out. So it will be very interesting to see if Americans say 6 months from now, if I say to you, Edward Snowden, will people remember? Will they remember the damage, the seriousness, the manhunt, the guy in Moscow? And a year from now, the Russians can eject him, deport him. We'll go to Venezuela, Somalia, God knows what godforsaken place he'll go. And there's still people out there that think this guy put it on the line for. I like what he said, too, about the father as a methodology to get him back home so that he can be tried. That's what he deserves, just like Bradley Manning. We're waiting to see the sentence. I think he's going to end up with 30 years or so, and we'll see how that plays out. A little bit later in the show, though, we're going to put it all on hold, slow down, and talk with Ted Cruz, Senator Ted Cruz from Texas, who is the junior senator, but a guy making tremendous waves. We played you some sound from Chris Matthews calling him a political terrorist. We'll talk with him about that. Karl Rove, Obamacare, and his role in the Senate. Straight ahead, Dom Giordano sitting in for Steve Malzberg.
The Steve Malzberg Show.
If your prostate is giving you problems and your doc says it's just part of getting older, be wary. Renowned physician and author Dr. David Brownstein thinks this is baloney. He's discovered a link between aging and prostate health and believes prostate concerns do not have to be an inevitable part of aging. That's why he created Prostate Revive.
Hi, I'm Dr. David Brownstein. I personally formulated Prostate Revive to include the most essential natural ingredients available to help promote a healthy prostate gland and optimal urinary function.
The producers of Dr. Brownstein's Prostate Revive are so thrilled with the positive feedback from satisfied customers that for a limited time, they are willing to send you your first month's supply free. Plus, call now and you'll also receive Dr. Brownstein's special report, A Doctor's Guide to a Healthy Prostate. For details on getting your free bottle, call 1-800-596-REVIVE.
REVIVE. That's 1-800-596-REVIVE. Take control with Prostate Revive. Call now while supplies last to claim your risk-free bottle at 1-800-596-REVIVE.
Hello, my name is Fred Fleitz, and I'm the managing editor of Lignet. You've probably seen our name preceding some of the stories you read on Newsmax or heard Lignet referenced on Fox News, C-SPAN, or CNN. Perhaps you've asked yourself, what is Lignet? Lignet is an acronym for the Langley Intelligence Group Network, a private Washington, D.C. based service that provides global intelligence, in-depth analysis, and detailed forecasting. Lignet's staff and advisors include former CIA officers, national security experts, presidential advisors, and top-level government officials from around the world. I myself held several national security posts for the U.S. government during my 25-year career with the Central Intelligence Agency, the Defense Intelligence Agency, the U.S. Department of State, and the House Permanent Select Committee on Intelligence. Our lead advisor is General Michael Hayden, the former director of the CIA. He is joined by former U.S. Ambassador to the United Nations John Bolton and former chairman of the National Intelligence Council and Special Assistant to President Ronald Reagan Fritz Ehrmann, former U.S. Ambassador to Venezuela Otto Reich, and former clandestine service officer Frederick Russman. Former chairman of the House Intelligence Committee Peter Hoekstra also joined our advisory board staff. Every day, our goal is to use our expertise, our resources, and our worldwide staff to take the pulse of the ever-changing political and economic landscape and the threats we face on a daily basis. Whether you are following global events for your portfolio or business, or just interested in the world around you, Lignet provides what you need to know to keep up with global events. There are many. Every day, Lignet members receive the Morning Brief, a daily email that provides summaries and links to our daily analysis to keep you up to date on Lignet's assessments. Lignet members receive unrestricted access to Lignet's secure database of global analysis. All of our special reports, previous analyses, and exclusive video interviews with intelligence insiders are available to members 24 hours a day. But you also get top-notch analysis that resembles the President's Daily Brief, the classified intelligence assessment delivered to the President of the United States every morning. Lignet also sends breaking news emails to our membership list. If there is a development of global proportions or a terror alert, our subscribers are always the first to know. I hope you now have a better understanding of what Lignet is, but more importantly, recognize how truly invaluable Lignet can be. As the old saying goes, knowledge is power.
Join Lignet for $1. Go to lignet.com.
This is not your typical Screamfest talk show.
No.
This is the next generation of talk radio. Here is Steve Malzberg.
Hey, welcome in, everyone. Here's Dom Giordano rounding out my day, sitting in for Steve. Senator Cruz, Ted Cruz, big interview coming your way in about 10, 15 minutes here of all the big issues that he's really in the center of the universe on. We'll get to that. But I'm looking at a poll that's right up the alley of talking with Senator Ted Cruz momentarily here. Nearly 2/3 of Americans want their party to change its direction, and more than half say they want the party to become more conservative, according to a new poll that's out. When asked if Republicans just need to make a stronger case on their positions or whether they need to reconsider some of their positions, 59% of GOP voters surveyed in a Pew Research Center, and Pew's pretty unbiased on this stuff, said the party needs to reconsider some policies. 36% said it just needs to make a stronger case. 67% said the party needs to address major problems, as opposed to 30% who said the necessary changes are only minor. On which direction the party should take, here's the key element, though. Voters were more split, just over a half. 54% said party leaders should move in a more conservative direction. 40% said they should be more moderate. That's a big and pretty close split. Of the prominent GOP figures, Wisconsin Representative Paul Ryan was the most popular, with 65% viewing him favorably. I'm kind of surprised at that because I have gone downhill a little bit on Paul Ryan, given his stance on illegal immigration and given the fact that I don't think he was that spectacular in the 2012 presidential campaign. Florida Senator Marco Rubio was viewed favorably by 50% to 20%. Christie, 47 to 30. Ted Cruz, 33 to 13% unfavorably, with 53% saying they had no opinion. Wow, no opinion of Ted Cruz. It tells us that, Rand Paul was viewed favorably by 55 to 19. He's one of the leaders in that. That's good stuff. So we'll be talking with Ted Cruz, and maybe he hasn't done that many interviews. Maybe that's one of the reasons why 53% said they really had little or no opinion. And the big thing I'm going to talk to Cruz about is the fact that he's being called a terrorist, a political terrorist who just wants to bring the government to a halt by people like Chris Matthews. I know that in previous interviews, Cruz has said he'd like to debate Karl Rove on this issue of defunding Obamacare. I really think on the issue of the direction of the Republican Party is where Ted Cruz would like to debate him. But I know to a lot of my listeners, and I think to Steve's viewers, that this guy is a superstar. He's 1, 2, 3 right up there where many conservatives see our hope. He's a young guy. He's a very articulate guy. And liberty, the Constitution, things of that nature, they roll off his tongue very easily versus the Karl Roves of the world who are just doom and gloomers telling us that if we stand up and try to defund Obamacare in the next month or so, that will result in the shutdown of the government. It will result in really tarring the Republican Party. I don't believe that. We'll see what Ted Cruz has to say and where his mind is on it at this point. Hey, one other thing that's out there. We've talked a lot on Steve's show today about the NSA, about spying. We just talked about Edward Snowden. The AP has a story today. President Obama's national security team acknowledged for the first time Wednesday that when investigating one suspected terrorist, it can read and store the phone records of millions of Americans. It was revealed recently that the National Security Agency puts the phone records of every American into a database. The Obama administration has assured the nation that such records are kept, rarely searched, and when they are, only suspected terrorist records. Meanwhile, at a hacker convention in Vegas on Wednesday, the head of the NSA said government methods used to collect telephone and email data helped foil 54 terrorist plots, a figure that drew open skepticism from lawyers back in Washington. In fact, yesterday, Rand Paul with me said that that's not the case. It's only one if it is that, and that most of the foiled terrorist plots, those were done by good old-fashioned police work. They get a tip, they're working people, they get a warrant for this and to search and find. That's how we've stopped most of these things. That makes sense to me. I want them to have the tools that they need, but are these the tools? Or are these things that are troublesome at best and at worst hugely, hugely concerning? So we'll bring all that up, too, with Ted Cruz. Our other big story of the day, we had on a sports writer from Philadelphia talking about Riley Cooper. Watch for this to get hot. This is not Bradley Cooper, Riley Cooper. This is the backup wide receiver for the Philadelphia Eagles who's in the news because he dropped the N-word when he had a confrontation with some black security guy at a Kenny Chesney concert in Philadelphia about 6 weeks or so ago. It came to light. Various websites started playing it yesterday. Now it's out there nationally. You have bounties being threatened. You have the NFL having to step in. This is the last thing they want, racial division. People for money threatening bounties to attack a guy. What will they do within the rules? And all this churning and churning and churning around the very issue of what did this guy do as far as that versus the violence of many big-time athletes in the NBA, NFL. I gave you the statistic that since the beginning of the year, 40 NFL players have been arrested. Do we take that for granted? Do we see it? That's the way athletes are. That's what you have to expect. It comes with the territory. And for any number of violent things, I mean, beating women, the minor crimes, if you can call them minor, would involve DUI at frightening levels of intoxication, allegedly. Then we have Aaron Hernandez up in Foxborough, Massachusetts, the Patriots, that they've dropped him. Charges of murder, not murder in a sense of passion or whatever in a fight, but allegedly plotting to kill someone in a shooting and then cover all that up. So a lot to talk about more on that coming up. But Ted Cruz, for my money, could be the VP candidate at least when the Republicans get around to their nominee. He may run for president this time. I do think Rand Paul is running. I do think Marco Rubio is running. Peter King today pretty much told us that he's going to be running. The congressman, he's up to New Hampshire. It's a lock solid as soon as his New Jersey election and crowning is over that Governor Christie will be running. I believe Rick Santorum, who I'm friendly with, will be running this time around. You're probably going to see the same 7 or 8 people, but a higher caliber maybe than the field that we saw in 2012 will be out there throwing their hats into the ring. We'll ask Ted Cruz about that, Obamacare, and being called. We'll play you that cut coming back and ask Ted Cruz live to respond to it in real time what Chris Matthews said about him as far as being a political terrorist, kind of like the Joker who just wants to blow up government, win by default, stop it by default. All that is straight ahead. Dom Giordano pinch hitting for Steve Malzberg.
The Steve Malzberg Show.
Hey guys, do you know your testosterone level? You should. Each year, declining testosterone robs more of your energy, drive, motivation, and even your ability to perform in bed. Take control of your testosterone today. Write this number down because Progene, the leader in dual-action testosterone supplements, is now giving you a free supply if you call today at 800-592-4834. If you'd like to feel closer to 20 than 40 and get back that energy, drive, and confidence, call now to try Progene risk-free. Don't believe us? We'll even prove it works. Ask about our at-home testosterone test kits and see for yourself what Progene can do for you. Be one of the next 100 callers. We'll triple your order and send you a full 1-month supply of Progene for free. A $70 value for only the cost of shipping and handling. Call 800-592-4834 for details. Know your level and kick your drive back into gear with Progene. Call 800-592-4834. That's 800-592-4834. Again, 800-592-4834.
3 a.m. and you're up again for the third time. It's not just affecting your sleep, it's interrupting your daily life. Frequent trips to the bathroom due to an aging prostate is a common concern, but you can now do something about it with Prostate Revive. Doctor-formulated Prostate Revive is an all-natural dietary supplement packed with 15 powerful ingredients, focused on improving prostate health by targeting the 2 main sources of prostate concerns, rogue testosterone and inflammation. And now, in this limited time radio offer, you can try Prostate Revive absolutely free. That's a free bottle, a 30-day supply of Prostate Revive, risk-free. Plus, if you call right now, you'll also receive our free report, A Doctor's Guide to a Healthy Prostate. Call now for details on getting your free bottle, plus our doctor's report. Call 1-800-659-REVIVE. That's 1-800-659-REVIVE. Don't be a victim of an aging prostate. Start getting the sleep you need and get your life back with Prostate Revive. Claim your risk-free bottle now at 1-800-659-REVIVE.
My patients still don't know what Obamacare means for them. And how could they? There are already 13,000 pages of regulations, and the bureaucrats are just getting started. Obamacare will change your health care, and you need to understand how. There are hidden taxes and fines, big cuts in Medicare, even new regulations on what services doctors can offer you. Some businesses could get hit with a 40% additional tax on your health care plan. Please, get the Obamacare Survival Guide today. It's the best book explaining the new law. It's easy to read, everything you need to know to protect yourself, your family, your business. The Obamacare Survival Guide at bookstores everywhere.
Special internet-only offer right now at Obamacare911.com.
Are payday loans ruining your life? If you have 2 or more payday loan cash advances, listen closely. You may be eligible for a program that payday loan companies don't want you to know about.
This program will get payday loan companies out of your bank account and put an end to the payday loan nightmare. Call for free information and find out if Payday Loan Support Center is right for you. Payday loan companies usually trap you into paying rates as high as 700%. We understand payday lenders' tactics. Don't let them take advantage of you anymore. All you need is 2 or more payday loans to qualify. We can help even if you're behind in collections or have bad credit.
Internet payday loans qualify for this program as well. So call 800-250-5084. That's 800-250-5084. The call is free and the consultation is free. Don't miss out. Call for your free information on payday loan relief. 800-250-5084. That's 800-250-5084. Again, 800-250-5084.
Hi, I'm Joan London, and if you're worried about your parent or a loved one living alone like I was, and you want reliable senior care information, then call A Place for Mom, the nation's largest senior living referral service. You'll get free information on assisted living, Alzheimer's care, nursing homes, even important financial information.
They had obviously researched every place, not just given me names.
Really? Yeah.
They found me a place for what she could afford, and it was magnificent.
We're now very confident that she's safe, and they just helped every step of the way, and I can't thank them enough.
So if you're struggling to find reliable senior living information, call A Place for Mom. This is a free service, and you can trust them to help you.
If you're struggling to find reliable senior living information for your mom or dad, then call or go online to get the free help you need during this turbulent time. Call now, 800-908-1254, 800-908-1254.
Microphones hot. Satellite link established. Studio lights illuminated. Cameras rolling. Audio and video encoders firing ones and zeros. Internet stream is streaming. The most technology advanced radio show is on the air. Here's the captain of this enterprise, Steve Malzberg.
The purpose of a terrorist, and he used different means obviously than blowing bombs, is to cause chaos and to bring down a government because of the chaotic situation where nobody has any trust in institutions. You tell me how that's not what he's trying to do here. Bring the government to default so it's not paying its bills. Stop the government from functioning and bring down bills that have created institutions like Obamacare that have already been decided upon. Blow them up after they were brought into law. Blow up the government's ability to pay bills that has already run up. If that's not causing chaos, what is it?
Hey, that's Chris Matthews. You know, I'm from Philadelphia. Chris is from Philadelphia. We don't speak too much anymore. My name is Dom Giordano, pinch hitting for Steve Malzberg. And Matthews there, in his usual deranged mode, trying to take down one of our brightest stars, Ted Cruz, and now calling him a political terrorist. The Scarborough Show just can't get enough of piling on Ted Cruz, and he takes on all comers. He'll be with us here momentarily on the Steve Malzberg program to talk about this, to talk about the stir he's created just in his first term, and to talk about what he wants to do as far as defunding Obamacare and revitalizing the Republican Party, which seems to have any number of Republicans firing at Senator Ted Cruz. And I've been waiting for quite a while to get him on here on the Malzberg program. We have a little bit of a delay, but he'll be with us momentarily so I can put these questions to him. Thanks for your patience on it. He represents, along with Rand Paul that we had yesterday and a couple of others, the Republican establishment versus those that are saying the way for the party to go is the poll that I just cited to you that says that people want, for want of a better term, a more conservative candidate. We've had Mitt Romney, who, let's face it, was all over the place early on in his career and then found sort of a faux conservative mode in the 2012 election. We had John McCain, who fires away at Republicans every day under the title that he's a maverick versus truly what he is, a guy that you can't trust. And then we have some of the people that are genuine conservatives, some with more of a libertarian streak, like Rand Paul, certainly Senator Ted Cruz, and a few others that have our attention. And I think this is the future of the party. This is where people want us to go versus the old saw of Romney and John McCain. So momentarily you'll hear from Ted Cruz. We know there's a setup, and we'll go with him to talk about this because we are on the cusp of quite a shootout that just ended up happening between Rand Paul and Governor Christie around the direction of the party. We heard from Peter King today, who was more in the Christie camp, about all these stories of Rand Paul talking about privacy, liberty, individual rights, the Constitution. So let's go right now, and excited to bring him to you, Senator Ted Cruz here on the Steve Malzberg program. Hey, Senator, thank you very much. Pleasure to speak with you today.
Dom, it's terrific to have the chance to join you.
Well, Senator, we played the cut. Now, I don't know which one to play. You take shots from everybody, which means I think you're doing something right. I'm from Philadelphia, as you know. Chris Matthews is from, we know each other pretty well, but a long time ago, he went off the reservation. What do you think of being called now a political terrorist on top of everything else?
Well, I think my favorite comment on that was someone on Twitter who suggested an ironclad rule going forward that anyone who calls a political opponent a terrorist should forever be prohibited from accusing anyone of demagoguery.
I think that should work, absolutely. I've seen publicly, too, and I think this would be a good pay-per-view, would like to debate Karl Rove, and we want to break down, because this is where we really get into intense policy, on the issue of defunding Obamacare. We've heard from some of your colleagues, and I think we're pretty much in unison, that this is our last best chance. Rove, as you know, though, Senator, says this would be a huge error for Republicans. We would get tarred with shutting down the government here.
Well, I think there are an awful lot of Republicans in Washington who are scared of President Obama blaming Republicans for any government shutdown.
Mm-hmm.
And they are haunted by ghosts of shutdown past. However, that fear and trepidation should not prevent us from taking our best and I believe our last real opportunity to actually defeat Obamacare. And for all of those Republicans who in good faith are nervous about proceeding down this path, I would suggest two very simple points. Number one, on January 1st of next year, the exchanges and the subsidies will kick in. The Obama administration's plan is very simple. It is to get as many Americans as possible addicted to the subsidies, addicted to the sugar, because they know the simple fact that in modern times, no major entitlement has ever gone into effect and then been undone.
Exactly.
And so they just want as many people receiving subsidies, because once that happens, I believe it is likely that Obamacare will become a permanent feature of our economy. Now, if that's right, and I believe it's right, and I have not heard anyone make a credible argument to the contrary, it leads to the second point and the critical point that I would encourage folks to ask any Republicans who are nervous about using the continuing resolution as the leverage to finally and successfully defund Obamacare. The second point is this, the simple question: what is the alternative? And there is no Republican alternative. Now you get some folks who say things like, well, we ought to delay the individual mandate. We ought to strip the IRS of enforcement power. They come up with sort of all sorts of partial solutions. But here's the critical point, Dom. If any of those partial solutions are passed as standalone legislation, I mean, the House could pass, say, eliminating the individual mandate. It doesn't matter, because Harry Reid and the Senate are not going to take it up.
Exactly.
So passing any of those partial measures is purely a symbolic gesture. It's essentially a press release. It has no chance of succeeding. The only thing that has a chance of succeeding, and nobody's presented any alternative at all, the only thing that has a chance of succeeding is if we can get 41 Republicans in the Senate or 218 Republicans in the House to stand together and say, we will not fund government, we will not fund a continuing resolution that funds 1 penny of Obamacare. We will fund everything else in government.
Right.
But enough is enough. This isn't working. It's failing. There's bipartisan agreement. The American people agree, and we're going to stand up and stop it.
Senator, I want to say, too, your tone, having you now actually being able to talk with you versus how you're portrayed out there, you know, that you're running around the halls saying, you're a surrender lobby, I'm a wacko bird if you don't do what I want. I think you've just said a lot of these guys are of good faith, but they're a bit timid. They're a bit the ghost of Christmas past, and we're trying to lead them. We're not trying to bludgeon them, but we're trying to tell them this is legitimately the last chance. I like what Mike Lee, your colleague, has said, that is, if you don't vote to defund this, then you're going to own it. You will have ownership of it.
That is exactly right. And to make this happen, we've got to do a couple of things that have not happened before. Number one, the usual rules of Washington. If they apply, we can't win. If the forum for persuasion is the closed-door meeting rooms of Washington, the smoke-filled rooms of elected representatives and lobbyists, we will never prevail on this fight. In order to prevail, the only thing that can win this fight is if the American people get motivated, engaged, and mobilized at historic levels. It's the reason this week a national website was launched, don'tfundit.com, don'tfundit.com. In 4 or 5 days, we've had 125,000 people sign up on the national petition. If we see in the next 60 days between now and September 30th, hundreds of thousands, or even better, millions of Americans engage, sign the national petition at don'tfundit.com, and call their elected representatives and their elected senators, light up the phones. Nothing gets the attention of an elected representative more than hearing from their constituents and encouraging our elected representatives to do the right thing, as you said, inspiring them to stand up and fight this fight. That's number one. We've got to mobilize the American people. And then number two, we've got to win the argument. The way this will play out procedurally, I believe it should start with the House of Representatives passing a continuing resolution that funds the entirety of the government, every bit of the government,
right,
except for Obamacare, and that explicitly prohibits any government spending on Obamacare, both discretionary and mandatory, and I filed statutory language that I think should be attached to the continuing resolution. The next step is President Obama and Harry Reid predictably will scream and yell that the mean, nasty Republicans are threatening to shut down the government. And at that point, we've got to stand up and win the argument and go to the American people and say, no, we have voted to fund the government. We want to keep the government open. Why is Barack Obama threatening to shut down the government? Barack Obama has already granted waivers from Obamacare to giant corporations. Why is President Obama threatening to shut down the federal government to deny those very same waivers to hardworking American people?
Exactly. And my take on it with guys like Ted Cruz and a few others there, that argument can be made. We're not going to be in the negativity camp of Mr. Rove and others. Just hearing you, interacting with you, the argument is there. We know it in our heart, and this is the last best chance. This is not a wild Hail Mary. This is a legitimate argument that can be won.
That is exactly right, and it's interesting. Many old hands in Washington, they operate from the assumption that, well, if the House does this, the president will naturally force a shutdown. And now it's worth noting that any shutdown is not. I think shutdown's a misnomer. What it in fact is a partial, temporary shutdown, because Social Security checks continue to flow, the military continues to be paid, the national debt continues to be serviced. If there's no continuing resolution in effect, what happens is non-essential government functions are temporarily suspended. Now that's inconvenient, but we actually see that every single week on the weekend.
Yep, and Senator, we're about ready to be suspended. I can't thank you enough. I'm sorry we're both flat out of time on today's show, but give that website one more time.
Don'tfundit.com, don'tfundit.com. Sign the petition, call your representative, and get 10 of your friends to do the same.
Senator, thank you very much. To be continued. Thanks, Senator.
Thank you, Dom. God bless you.
Senator Ted Cruz with us. Most impressed with this guy. Thanks to everyone that worked with me here at Steve Malzberg Show. Hope to be back again in the near future. Dom Giordano.